It's something not similar. Yeah, so it's important.
So got 1 minute. Long as it can't talk about it. The recording on now, already onto YouTube. Cam, do you want to do a sound check?
Sorry, is that on me?
Oh, I'm sorry.
Nope. I was asking for Cam.
I'm on
But
the,
I think
on
yep.
the Zoom call. Good evening.
That sounds good. Thank you. Good evening.
Okay, I'm gonna go by that clock above George instead of that clock back there by 10. Agreed. So, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I want to call to order the regular meeting of the Harpers Ferry Town Council. It is Monday, February 12th, 2024 at 7 p.m. All members of the council are physically, 6 members of the council are physically present. Storm is on Zoom, via Zoom. And so, welcome to everybody. Please rise for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Approval of the agenda. Nina, I believe you have something.
Yeah, I'd like to make a motion to move 63 and 4 to be after the treasurer reports 5B. 63 and 4 are the discussion and action regarding discussion and action. Oh, that was right. Regarding RFP for WDA project financing and discussion and action regarding bond reimbursement resolution.
Okay, where do you want to put those meetings?
Right after the treasurer reports.
I second that. Wait a minute, George. Let me figure out where I'm going here. So that's going to follow 5B, correct?
Correct,
Nina?
yeah.
Okay. All right, so we have a motion and a second to move. Bear with me. 6D, Roman numeral 4, 6D, Roman numeral 5, to follow
5B.
5B. All right.
3 and 4. Just 3 and 4. Not 5.
Okay, we have a second on the motion. Any discussion on the motion? Hearing none, all in favor of the motion to move. Okay. Opposed?
I have a motion.
Okay.
I have a motion to delete item 6L, Roman numeral 1. Six L is parking committee, and Roman numeral 1 is the first item regarding reappointment.
I'll second that.
Discussion on the motion?
Yes, my reason for doing this is that I've looked in the parking committee charter, and there's no provision for reappointment of anybody. In fact, the word reappointment doesn't appear anywhere. And also, this would get in the way of, would in fact disqualify somebody who would be applying for one of the resident positions in item 6L, Roman numeral 2. I think feel that Roman numeral 6L2 takes care of whatever else has to happen. And it leaves, of course, 6L3 as it is.
Okay, George, any other discussion? All those in favor of the motion, raise your hand. Opposed? You abstain from this one? Storm, would you vote?
Opposed.
Okay, motion fails.
Mayor?
Yeah.
This is kind of more of a question, but I wondered about 8B, if we have some members of the community who would want to move that up. Maybe,
That was my
Right, I think Nina's prepared
Yeah.
for that.
Actually, my next motion was going to be, to move new business to follow, 64. So we have quite a few items in our business that involve members of the community, that are here to listen to those items be presented, and probably don't want to wait till 10. I'll second that.
Point of clarification, did you mean everything under 8?
Everything.
And we had a second from who?
Roberta,
Thank you, Roberta.
what do you want? Right after 6D4. So it'll be before we do the town reports.
Say that again, please, one time.
New business will be moved right above town reports. So we'll do 64, then new business, then town report.
You mean 65?
64.
No, we only moved 3 and 4. We didn't move 5.
Oh,
Right.
sorry.
Oh, okay. Yeah, you want to, all right, okay. got it. I still support that motion.
Okay, and we had a second on that from Roberta. Any discussion on, yeah, Chris?
well, it involves primarily the 8C on the dark skies. It really pertains to ORC. In the ORC section, I see items 1, 2, and 3 under that. I would like to include that as one discussion, and so that we could talk about all of those at the same time, and then 4, 5, and 6, and 8C all as one discussion under the same topic.
Roberta, you have a discussion for it?
8C is a totally different item submitted by someone else. So maybe the person who submitted that, did our request can address that.
Yeah, sorry.
Okay, Zach.
So I was the one who submitted that. I'm happy to put it wherever. And since I didn't realize at the time how long the agenda was going to be, if we want to make it just discussion, we don't have to go into discussion and action on that one. But I feel like that's a separate motion, but I can wait there.
Let's leave it on, my recommendation is to leave it. Storm, go ahead.
So it's a question about 8C and if that's included in the items.
Correct. I think because I guess the question was that 8C should be moved under ordinance review to be discussed with all the dark sky ordinance questions, or if it should stay with the business.
If we're moving old business up, I'd like to keep it with old business.
One more time. He wants to keep it with with new business.
Okay, all right. Any other discussion? Okay, so we have a motion, we have a second. We've concluded discussion to move 8 new business A through E, following wherever it was, Zach.
6D4, right before town reports.
Okay, when you get to that point, you will tell me when we're to that point, okay? All right, all those in favor of that, raise your hand. All right, thank you. Anything else? If they're hearing none, Chair will entertain a motion to approve the agenda.
Motion to approve the agenda as amended.
Okay, and a second?
Second.
All those in favor of the amended motion? Main motion to approve the agenda.
Approve the agenda.
Okay, second on the motion to approve the agenda. Second from George, and discussion on the motion to approve the agenda. Hearing none, all in favor of the motion to approve the agenda? 7-0. Okay, public comment, Nana?
Yeah, Ed Wheelis on item 8D. 3 minutes starting now.
I'm Ed Wheelis. I live on Street Street. I currently served on the town council, the planning commission, and for 10 years I was chair of historic landmarks. I currently serve on the board of zoning appeals. I'd like to comment on certificates of appropriateness. Article 131 of our ordinances, which comes directly from state code, says that historic landmarks commission may exercise authority to issue certificates of appropriateness. However, compliance in our historic district is currently regulated through a zoning overlay and appears in part 13 of the ordinance. As background, our current preservation ordinance was enacted about a decade ago in response to a number of factors. One, the town had lost a court challenge because our preservation ordinances were no longer in compliance with state code. Two, residents complained that the permit review process was too lengthy. Applications required approval of planning, landmarks, and council and could take as long as 3 months. Applicants stated they felt decisions were subjective and relied on the whims and tastes of whomever was impaneled at the time. Guidance was somewhat based on the broad Secretary of Interior's guidelines for preserving, rehabilitating, restoring, and reconstructing historic buildings. Although there were complaints about consistency in applying these standards, each of which requires varying degrees of authenticity, and the guidelines themselves are silent on new construction. To address these concerns, we adopted the more objective and prescriptive Harpers Ferry Historic District Standards and Guidelines, which is your Appendix A, based on the standards for rehabilitation. This is a best practice used in many historic districts. We allow for administrative approval by the OCO for applications that were in strict compliance with the standards and guidelines. This rewards and incentivizes a resident who strictly adheres to the standards and guidelines with a quick approval. And on the advice of our land use attorney at the time, we opted to regulate the historic district through a zoning overlay rather than through certificates of appropriateness. The land use attorney felt the zoning approach, although novel, was more likely to withstand a challenge in court, which was a keen concern with the hotel project on the horizon. Personally, I'm neutral on whether the town uses certificates of appropriateness or zoning to regulate the historic district, but we can't have both. If the council decides to pursue certificates of appropriateness, it's more than a simple up or down vote. To enact certificates of appropriateness, my understanding is that the project permitting language needs to be relocated from Part 13, since that section is the purview of the BZA.
30 seconds.
I encourage the town council to engage a land use attorney to ensure any changes to the ordinances or processes conform to state code and to explore a carrot approach, such as authorizing the OCO to administratively issue COAs to those who stringently follow the historic district standards and guidelines. And finally, I believe it's important for the town, whichever path it chooses, to keep the permitting process neutral, efficient, and consistent. Okay, thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ed.
All right, thank you. Karen Segisi?
Thank you, Mayor Hall, for giving me this opportunity to speak to you. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Karen Segisi. I am representing a new organization, a chapter of Dark Sky International. We are Dark Sky Bolivar Harpers Ferry, and we're a group of local advocates dedicated to restoring the nighttime environment, protecting communities from the harmful effects of light pollution through outreach, advocacy, and conservation. Each founding member has completed advocacy training through Dark Sky International. Last September, we became the very first and only official Dark Sky International chapter in the state of West Virginia. In 2003, we presented to community groups and schools, providing education about the impact of light pollution and some simple ways that each person can lessen those impacts. This year, we submitted a proclamation request to Governor Justice to declare April 2nd through the 8th of 2024 as Dark Sky International Week for the state of West Virginia. We have been invited by U.S. Fish and Wildlife to a national summit on light pollution and bird strikes, and will continue to present at schools and local community events. Our goals for this year are to grow our membership and become more involved in countywide efforts to combat light pollution. How can we help you? Dark Sky Bottle for Harpers Ferry is here to partner with the town of Harpers Ferry in their efforts to protect the night sky. We can offer public education and outreach, research, and access to Dark Sky International's worldwide advocate network. We understand that the town is making strides toward a lighting ordinance, and we applaud those efforts. If we can be of any assistance to you during the process, please feel free to call upon us. We have also heard that efforts have been made to remove the Cobra Head light on Fillmore Street and would like to extend our gratitude to those involved. Why now? With the growing tourism industry in the state and the growing population of Jefferson County, now is the time to provide public education about light pollution and to take steps to protect our night sky. Fighting light pollution is a win-win battle. The environment benefits, human health benefits, energy is conserved, money is saved, and public safety is enhanced. The costs are minimal and often offset by the savings in electricity. It's simply turn the lights down and tone them down. Our town is one of the most beautiful and popular tourist destinations in the state and the region. The natural beauty and the historic atmosphere are what attracts so many to visit.
30 seconds.
Let's work together to preserve our night sky. We meet monthly. We're going to be right here Thursday evening at 6 p.m. Anyone who's interested is welcome to attend. We have a website. We're also on Facebook and Instagram. I mix those up. And I'm going to go ahead and drop off just a copy of the brochures that we would be able to offer if you need to do any public outreach information.
Thank you very much, Karen.
All right, Sean Thomas.
Hello, my name is Sean Thomas. I've met with Greg, and thanks for meeting with me. And town council, it's just me putting a name to my face. I did send in my letter of interest for the parking committee. So I'll keep it short and sweet. I'm just wanting to let you know I do live in town here up on West Ridge Street. I'm very interested into it. I would like to be considered for it. And with that, I know there's plenty more that probably want to speak about other things, but again, I just wanted to sort of put a name to the face. So
Thank you, Sean.
thank you.
Thank you.
Welcome. All right, Patrick Tierney.
Good evening, Town Council. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Patrick Tierney. I'm a resident of Washington Street here in Harpers Ferry. I'm heartened to hear that dark skies are back in the news here in town. We've been talking about it since I was on the first comprehensive plan working group with Greg many, many years ago. A lot of talk on this, no action on this. I hope finally the town does something to preserve our dark skies in this community. The other reason why I wanted to speak today is I submitted a letter of interest for the parking committee. Have been on the committee for a couple of administrations now. I am the longest serving member of the parking committee. I was an advocate for paid parking before we had paid parking. I felt often that I was a one-person lobbying operation to try and get paid parking. I'm very happy that we have paid parking now, and we need to manage that effectively. I think that public parking is a public good that needs to be managed by the town. It's a privilege and not a right. And we need to manage our parking that's in the best interest of the entire town. Managed parking will actually help us with our tourism because they turn over more quickly than they would without paid parking. And we have a better sense of people who are visiting in town. I also think that we have some other opportunities to improve signage, to make enforcement more effective, not just on Washington Street or on Potomac Street in Lower Town, but in the residential areas of town. We have some scofflaw parking signs that we've discovered that I think should be addressed. People randomly putting up unapproved parking, no parking signs. So there's more work to be done, and I'm happy to do so, and I would be happy and available to serve for either appointment. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Patrick.
All right, next, Christian Petroconis.
All right, following up on Patrick here. I'm Christian Petroconis, living at 900 Fillmore Street for the past 7 years. And I'm addressing agenda item 6LI, discussion action regarding reappointment for 2 community members of the Parking Committee. Patrick Turney and I have a strong record of accomplishments for service to our town. For fiscal year 2023, the parking system generated $220,000 in revenue, the second highest revenue source for Harpers Ferry. This represents a 73% increase compared to fiscal year 2019 when I started on the parking committee. Our parking enforcement has skyrocketed. In tickets written, we take enforcement very seriously to protect the integrity of our parking system. Last October, 174 tickets were issued as compared to October 2020 with 43 written. This represents an increase of 328%. We are extremely active and responsive committee. We've held 8 formal committee meetings in 2023. We are an ad hoc committee. We were the first ad hoc committee to get their charter approved as a standing committee. And we have had minimal parking complaints, and when they occur, we resolve them quickly and fairly. This is an active and critical committee that devotes serious attention to keeping it operating at the highest level. We are always on call to fix parking problems whenever they arise. We know that our record speaks for itself, but we do have much more to accomplish as more demands are being placed on our parking system each year. And one of the biggest issues facing the committee in the near future is the construction phase of the Hilltop House Hotel. We feel our experience will be invaluable at that time. Thank you.
Thank you, Christian.
All right, and is it Tim Wisecarver?
No, he's here.
Good evening. My name is Tim Wisecarver. Speaking for myself, a citizen of Harpers Ferry for 30 years, and also on the Planning Commission. I'm not representing the Planning Commission, but I'm here to speak about the membership clause in Planning Commission 13302, specifically where it talks about 2 members, one the town council appointee and the mayor's appointee, whose term of service ends with the election. And so to explain the difficulty or the problem, I'll do a timeline. So on June 30th, the new town council took office. At that instant, the Planning Commission loses 2 members. They are now 5 members instead of 7. So that means that the time between that time and the next time the Planning Commission meets, which is in July, the town council needs to meet and appoint those 2 members so that we operate with a full committee. That shouldn't be difficult to do. You might not even need to change the laws, but in effect, what happened this year through various reasons was that the appointments weren't made until August, so that if there were a July Planning Commission meeting, which there weren't, we would have been like 2 people, and even in the August meeting, we were like 1 person because of this particular rule. So I think it's really important that for the next election that this be fixed. It's an easy fix. You might not even have to change the law. That's 2 minutes.
That one.
Okay, I got one more. I just didn't want you to interrupt. I'll interrupt myself, but not you. Thank you. So that's really it. I know that you're thinking about the sort of a general policy about how you appoint somebody to these positions, but I hope that that won't get in the way of doing this one thing, fixing this one thing that needs to be fixed so that the planning commission has a full complement of members. Thank you.
Thank you, Tim.
Thank you.
Thanks.
All right, that's all public comment.
Thank you.
Oh,
Mayor's announcements. I have 3 short ones. Tim, give that to Debbie, please. Want to jump back, and I think Karen, I want to thank you for making a recognition regarding the very popular light that we had on Fillmore Street. It was so popular with this council, and you recognized and thanked, for that coming about. I do want to say that in one of the last meetings that we had, I believe rightfully so, Storm was positively recognized for what he did and what you did, Storm, and I appreciate that, bringing that loop to a closure on that topic. But one individual that was not recognized, and I'm going to take the liberty to do that regarding that popular item on Fillmore Street, was a Christian. I'm not sure, council, if any of you know, that 2 Saturdays ago, very, very early in the morning, Christian is awakened by a phone call from Potomac Edison saying they got a crew up on Fillmore Street waiting to install the light. And I guess Christian didn't have to get out of bed at that time, but he did. He then went over to the site, I guess, and realized that you got to come up with a vintage light that was scheduled to be put up there. He made several calls, Christian, to find out where the light was and to get the storeroom open where the light fixture was stored. Came over and then with another individual got it transported up to the scene where the workers were working. And then Christian, you stayed around up there to make sure it was all done. You didn't have to do any of that, including calling the mayor at 7 o'clock in the morning. So I do want to thank you, Christian, for stepping up the plate. You're not on the town council. You weren't on the Cobra Light Committee after you left office, but thank you. And I think Karen recognized that also, so thank you so much. Second thing I want to mention, council, is we have a very aggressive agenda this evening, and I'm going to ask each of you to be as succinct as possible when you do have the floor. And then the third thing I want to mention, if you may or may not know, not only council, but those attending, that the Maryland Bridge will be closed from 9 a.m. to 3 p.m. one lane all this week, Monday through Friday. So if you are planning traveling to Frederick and beyond, and you're going over the Maryland Bridge, there will only be one lane from 9A to 3P Monday through Friday of this week. They're making some necessary repairs there. So plan accordingly if you got to go to Frederick or in that direction. Nina.
Yeah, I just have 2 quick announcements and updates. I did meet with the Bolivar representative about 2 weeks ago, discussing collaborating on some projects regarding the opioid funds that we've been receiving and will be continuing to receive. So she and I have another meeting later this week to kind of brainstorm some different ideas that we could do within the community. Those would obviously be presented to council before making any sort of decisions on them. But we're coming up with a few different collaborative ideas for ways to use those funds. And I'll be presenting some of those options at the March meeting. And also just because we have a very long agenda tonight, at 9:30, it'd be great if we could just pause and take a look at where we stand on the agenda and sort of assess if there are any items that should be maybe postponed to March or moved to a special meeting. So we could wrap up hopefully no later than 10 tonight. So those are my announcements.
Thank you, Nina.
Yeah.
Community announcements, Laura, do you have any? Okay, great.
Laurel Samansky, project manager of the Hilltop. And if you can't hear me. So, thank you, Mayor Vaughn. Hello, Town Council. We are continuing our permitting process. We have 3 building permits, 1 grading permit that we need to move forward. The grading permit, of course, is the site permit, includes all the infrastructure. And then the 3 building permits are the main hotel structure, the lodge, and the yellow house, which also is known as the Stanhagen House. So we're working through the application phases on those. We have good news moving forward at the County Commission. They have hired an attorney to answer and discuss the TIF and what effects it would have on the county, what obligations there would be, what advantages, and so forth. So there's going to be probably another couple weeks or maybe a month of discussions at the county level. We're looking forward to a favorable vote, and we're hoping for that. And then on, just kind of the inside, what's been happening behind the scenes, we have a mural that has been commissioned. It's going to be in the hotel lobby, and it's going to show a timeline of Harper's Ferry within art. And that's moving along nicely. We have been working with historians on the collection, the armory collection of rifles and muskets. We've made a film on those, and we're working on a contract to be the showcase place for that collection. And we're also forwarding other interior art studies and history studies. So that's where we are. Thank you.
May I ask one quick question?
Yeah, clarification only, though I want to get into deliberation.
No, I understand, sir. The artist's name for the mural?
Curtis Schwartz.
Is it a local artist?
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you, Laura. Nina, you've got a report from the National Park Service. Could you read that?
Yeah, I'll try and summarize some of it. So no word yet on new superintendent selection. They're hoping within the next couple weeks a name will be announced. They have 3 upcoming park projects. The HEFE, they're replacing the HVAC systems on buildings 43, 44, and 45. It'll be happening in the spring, late April, early May. There'll be a project to replace outdated HVAC systems in 3 park buildings along Shenandoah Street. One of which is the park bookstore, restrooms, and the industry museum. The period of work will be from 10 to 12 months. And during this time, the bookstore will be relocated to 780 Shenandoah Street, and visitors will be directed to use the John Brown Museum or train station restrooms. They're also doing roof repair and exterior features of the 7 John Brown Museum buildings. The work will start late February, early March, probably running into June. The project will be comprised of 3 tasks, which will be the emphasis of the task will be the preservation of exterior features as a general preventative maintenance cycle. They will be the project phase will include selective repair of the following features: porches, wooden steps, exterior doorways, gutters, downspouts, deteriorated mortar joints above the roof line. And the third project is rehabilitating gutter and drainage systems park-wide. Starting in Lower Town, 23 buildings selected in which replace gutters throughout the park. Most likely starting mid-March, maybe in the Lower Town for 2 months, ongoing throughout various locations after that, lasting about 6 months in duration.
Thanks, Nina.
And we had added dark skies under other. I'm not sure if you have anything else that you'd like to say or.
If anybody has any questions.
Okay.
Thanks, Karen. Approval of minutes, regular minutes, regular meeting, December 11, 2023. Chris,
Nina, thank you for doing some of the running on corrections and clarifications on things. The only thing I noticed still on December 11th was that the date is still wrong. It's still listed as December 14th.
I will make an adjustment.
And with that correction, I'd like to move to approve the minutes of December 11th.
second on the motion to approve, second from George, discussion on the motion to approve. All those in favor of the motion to approve? Thank you. Opposed? None. Minutes for January 8, 2024.
I'd like the motion to approve.
Second on the motion, second from Chris, discussion on the motion to approve. Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion to approve, raise your hand. No opposed. Special meeting, January 18, 2024. Chris,
I'd like to make a motion to approve the minutes for January 18th.
Second to approve.
second from George, discussion on the motion to approve. All those in favor of the motion to approve, raise your hand. You opposed? None. And finally, minutes of February special council meeting of February 5, 2024.
Motion to
George, thank you. Chris, thank you for a second. Discussion on the motion to approve. Hearing none, all in favor of the motion to approve. Raise your hand. Thank you. No opposition. Treasurer's report, 5A. Debbie.
Good evening, Mayor and Town Council. The financials you have this for this evening are for the end of December, which is 1/2 of our fiscal year. In the general fund, we're using revision 2. Our target operating income is $1,104,000. And the income as of December is about $618,000. So that represents 56% of our operating income. And our expenses are at about 51%. For waterworks, revision 1 is reflected in the report, and overall, the December revenue received through the revenue received through the end of December is about 49% of projected, water billing specifically at 55%, and operating expenses at 49%.
Motion to approve financial, Chris.
I'd like to make a motion to approve the financial reports.
Second on the motion, second from George, discussion on the motion. Hearing none, all in favor of the motion to approve, raise your hand. None opposed.
Your invoices for purchasing to be approved here are here. I sent out an amended list today because through some efforts of our Public Works Administrator, AmeriGas altered their billing drastically from here to 4 going in the future as well. So that was about half of what they had been billing us before. And so I wanted to keep that moving along. It is the same thing. It's just less money. I didn't want to hold that up. So they are here along with snow removal, tree, and some other items if you want to see any of those for.
Chris?
I move to approve the payment of the checks over threshold.
Second from George, discussion on the motion to approve. Excuse me, all those in favor of the motion to approve? And opposed? 6-1. That, Debbie, we have,
Yep. That's it.
all right, so we're finished with the financials?
Now we are moving into, yes,
6, we are now,
6D3 and
64. Right. So we have, Debbie, could you give us a lead in to Cam?
Sure. So we have joining us on Zoom today, Mr. Cam Segrist from Bowles Rice, who is our bond attorney. He has drafted for us a request for proposal for financing the portion of the WDA grant program that we have been presenting in recent special town council meetings. I'm going to turn this over to Cam to assist us with just a general explanation of that and answer the questions.
Good evening. This is Cam Segrist of Bowles Rice, and I've worked with Debbie and Hoy Shingleton in drafting a request for proposals that can be sent out to your local banks or to whoever else you want to send it to, just soliciting their proposal to provide the financing portion that you need to do through water revenue bonds for your upcoming project. It asks for up to $700,000. We don't think it'll require all that, but we want to just use a not to exceed amount. And we asked for both proposals on 11 years and 16 years, just to see what those would look like to give you a decision as to whether you want to go on a shorter or longer basis. Each of those would include a 1-year interest only period, and then the remaining would be a amortization period that would fully amortize the principal and interest on the bonds. The 1-year interest only is driven, at least in part, by the fact that you've got a bond that should be defeased, which means money will be set aside to pay it, and you'll no longer have to make payments from your water system on that bond sometime early to mid next year. And hoping that this 1-year interest only period would get you to that point so that those monies that would otherwise be used to pay debt service on those bonds could be used to pay debt service on these bonds. It asks the bank that would be submitting the proposal to provide, various relevant information. And I've suggested that we give them until the 29th of February to respond. No magic to that, but that would give them, if it's sent out in the next few days, it would give them over 2 weeks to review it and respond. And I think we've heard back that the banks think that's enough time. So I won't belabor the point. Are there any particular questions about it? I'll be glad to go into more detail if you'd like.
Debbie?
I just want to make a comment in considering the timeline in and advertisement options. We have at least 4 banks that have given interest, and 2 or 3 other private financing agencies. So that's a total of about 7 agencies that we know are interested in making a proposal on this. If we delay starting this to put it in the spirit, that won't allow it to start until next Wednesday, because that's the next publication date that we can hit. So just putting that into consideration there. And I'm happy to extend to more local banks, like if we start the date on Wednesday, this coming Wednesday, and we extend the list to any other local banks we may have missed in the county. Happy to include that and make a publication on the website and under glass. Just want you to consider that, because that would throw that off about a 2-week timeline. It would kind of push us into the first week of March.
Chris?
Storm has a.
I'm sorry, Storm.
Yeah, I move to put the RFP for the WDA project financing out to bid as presented.
That is 6-4.
That is 6-3.
6-3, number 4.
6D3.
63.
It's right here.
Sorry, Storm.
Oh, did you not?
Second on the motion. Second from Chris. Discussion on the motion to approve. Roberta?
I had a question
Sure.
to the presenter, the Mr. Seacrest, if I could.
Sure.
Okay, good evening, Mr. Seacrest, Roberta Meade Curry, Town Council member. I do have a quick question. When you're talking to the banks, or maybe you've already had this conversation, banks are required to use Community Redevelopment Investment Act money and be cognizant of putting money back into the community under that act. Is there any way we can get better interest rates under that information and under that act?
I think the banks would probably take that into consideration when they submit their proposal, but we don't specifically lay that out as representation in the RFP. I think that's for the individual banks to determine and on their side and take that into consideration when they submit their proposal.
Should we consider amending that, because that could be significant change in interest rates and get us maybe a better allocation of money.
What's your opinion, Mr. Seekers?
I guess I've not seen that included in an RFP like this before. So I guess I would encourage maybe Debbie to have a conversation with the local banks to see what their reaction to that is. But I don't know that I want to put in this document that it qualifies or doesn't qualify. I think it's better if we allow the bank to make their own determination on that.
Okay, Debbie?
I mean, I think that many of the local banks have said that they have these, I don't have your terminology right, but these community investment opportunities, and they are aware an RFP is coming. So they are aware they are going to need to be competitive. And however they do that, I would expect they would give it their best shot. If it's through that avenue, why then, and it serves them as well, it would seem that would be what you lay out there. Storm has his hand up.
Okay, go ahead, Storm.
Yeah, based on prior discussions, it seems likely that the local banks have an upper hand because of that program and possibly other things. But I believe that this process is competitive, and with the number of bidders, it's designed to get us the most favorable rates we can. And I believe we have a duty to get the most favorable rates we can.
Any other discussion? Debbie?
Can I just also
Sure.
clarify, Storm, in the motion that you made, you said as presented, so we're gonna just leave out the piece about the publication and do it through interest and list of banks in the area. Okay, I just wanna make sure that I
Any-
understood. Thank you.
Any other discussion? All those in favor of the motion, raise your hand. Opposed, none. Discussion and action regarding bond reimbursement resolution.
Pam, this one's all you.
I'll be more than happy to try to explain this. The bank financing we just discussed is intended to be, tax exempt for federal income tax purposes. And there's a regulation that requires the governing body, in this case, the council, to declare its official intent to get reimbursed from the proceeds of that financing if it intends to get paid back from the proceeds of the bond issue for money it spent temporarily on the project. It's not mandatory that you reimburse yourself, but to me, this preserves the option for you to do that. And I just typically ask councils like yours to adopt these to keep that option open. It may not end up resulting in a reimbursement being actually done, but I believe it's appropriate here to adopt the resolution to preserve that option for Harper's Ferry.
Thank you, Cam.
Storm has his hand.
Go ahead, Storm.
I move to adopt the bond reimbursement resolution as presented.
I second that.
Zach had his hand up, George. I gotta give him a shot in the minutes.
Go, Zach.
Any discussion? Any discussion on the motion? All those in favor of the motion, raise your hand. Opposed, none. Okay, thank you, Mr. Seekers.
Is there anything else for you before I sign off?
No, we're good. Thank you so much.
Thank you all. Have a great meeting and enjoy the rest of the evening. Take care now.
Bye-bye.
We're now moving to new business, which is starting with 8A.
And Mayor, before we do, can I make a point of information for
Sure.
the audience? Thank you. It's occurring to me looking at a revised schedule that almost the very last thing is a parking committee. We had 3 citizens here interested in that. I wanted to say that if this goes on long, I understand that if you have to get home to your families, and as Sean, you have a family, we'll understand. And I want to take this opportunity also to thank you, Sean, for your military service. You were humble enough not to bring that up, but we have a person who did 3 tours of duty, and I think that's an admirable thing to recognize in this community.
Thank you, George. Go ahead, Nina.
Discussion and action regarding the adoption of the updated 5-year hazard mitigation plan resolution.
Okay, I think, Chief, you're gonna make an introduction here and walk us through this.
And may we have discussion and hear it all before we make any motions?
Good evening, Mayor and Council. I just want to introduce Deputy Director Dick Myers. He's Jefferson County Homeland Security Emergency Management Officer. I've worked alongside of with him in getting these documents put together along with Sergeant Armitage. We've met several times, and I'm just in support of this document. 668 pages along with the other municipalities that work together in placing the document together along with the Jefferson County Sheriff's Department and the county itself. So, no further ado, I'm going to go ahead and let Mr. Myers come up and talk a little bit about this plan that they put together. And once again, I am in support of it.
Thanks, sir. I'll go stand up and I don't know if it makes a difference. I always say that because everybody always makes fun of my height, but that's okay. I want to thank you for bringing this forward this early in the meeting. It is much appreciated since I have a long drive to get back home. And if you guys weren't aware, the snow forecast is 1 to 3 inches now instead of just rain, starting around 6 a.m. So just be aware of that. As Chief did explain, I just want to give you a little bit of quick background that we did have approximately 4 to 5 meetings for this updated plan, and it did include all the municipalities along with the members from the county and their rightfully departments that would participated. So we did receive a grant to update this, and it was approved by not only the State Hazard Mitigation Plan Committee down in Charleston, but FEMA Region 3 has also had approved the plan. And so that's where we are with that. As far as changes, I don't know, like I say, it's pretty light reading there if anybody wants to take the opportunity. Actually, the plan itself is only about 336 pages. The rest of them are graphs and charts and addendums. So the only 2 things I will make you aware of that have changed from the old plan was the cyber terrorism was a hazard that was not in the old plan, and also utility interruptions. And if you look on page 254, and the only reason I know that is I looked it up because I can't remember it by memory. You'll see a list of all the hazards that we have in our county and the municipalities by their ranking. And I was actually surprised because the people who participated in the planning process actually rated all of the hazards that we have in the plan. So the top 3 is public health crisis, and I'm sure that was because of COVID. So everybody made that basically number 1. Cyber terrorism and utility interruptions. And of course, flood is right underneath of that, which that's one of our biggest things here in Jefferson County and municipality. One of the other things you'll see is the mitigation strategy goals. They've added 3 additional from what the previous plan had. And that was the first one to promote hazard mitigation as a local community value and recognition of its importance to the health, safety, and welfare of the population. Number 2 is improve operating system and backup servers to enhance cybersecurity measures. And number 3 was the enhance the hazardous materials response planning and response operation. And the reason that was in there was because the fire departments don't have in our county, excuse me, don't have in our county a hazardous I'm trying to think of the word now. A hazardous materials vehicle, so to speak. The closest one that we have is Washington County or Berkeley County. So, and then of course, Loudoun County is the closest one to us. So that's one of the reasons why they put that in there. So whenever it comes to possibly getting funding, if it's in our plan, we can put that in there. Other than that, the only thing that we have, and you'll see it's listed that you have some mitigation items for your municipality. And how these have. So it might be highlighted in that top. So, I know I highlighted it, I think it for the mayor, from your council.
So if you, one of the, strategies that you have is establish a formal process for the town of Harpers Ferry and the Park Service to coordinate disaster relief efforts, which would include defining boundaries and establishing responsibilities. The other one is continue to educate the homeowners of the benefits and encourage them to participate. And then the other one, or the last one, was upgrade the Harpers Ferry Bolivar area water system infrastructure, which I do believe that one's ongoing still, if I read this number. But anyway, those are the hazard mitigation items for your municipality. So, and if you don't have any questions.
Dick, I have one. What other municipalities have approved the resolution?
Well, so far, the first group I went to was the county commission, which they adopted the plan. The second one, I just went to the town of Bolivar last week, I think it was. And of course, trying to get on everybody's schedule. So that's why I haven't gotten any more here. Third in line. And then I go to Shepherdstown next week. And then I think tomorrow I'm actually in Ransom.
And what action did Bolivar take that?
They adopted the plan.
Okay.
Yep.
And where's John? And John, you endorsed this plan? Okay.
And I would also encourage, because there's, in this pamphlet that I'm going to leave with you, it actually has a process of updating every year. So I would encourage you guys to put representation to see how far along we've gone each year until we get to the next 5-year plan. So it won't be hopefully as daunting of a task.
Okay. Roberta, you have a question?
I have several questions, if you don't mind.
No, go ahead, make it as quick as you
I
can.
will, I'll be fast. Okay, thank you, Mr. Myers, and thank you, Chief Brown. I was wondering who our team was, and you got the right man for the job. So thank you for all your time that you put on this. I did read the meeting minutes on your website. I did read part of this. I concentrated on the Harpers Ferry issues. So I did see PFAS and PFOS entered in the mitigation plan. Any response to that, to any municipality? What's going on for that?
I do not.
Okay, and then we had one of our past town council members bring up the concern of fire based on the Hawaii incident and Paradise and what have you. So do you feel fire, destruction of our buildings is a concern?
Yes, and that's one of your hazard areas as well.
Okay.
And just to go along with that, of course, in Hawaii, their mass notification system and a couple other big items did not go as planned and did not work and wasn't sent out, where we actually upgraded in Jefferson County to a more sustainable and more robust mass notification system, which will actually be going into effect probably within the next month or two.
Okay, nice. Okay, and then in regards to what our next step is, does this have to go to the Planning Commission and ORC to become part of our town documents? Because reading the comprehensive plan, we actually don't have anything for hazard mitigation or a hazard mitigation plan in our current comprehensive plan. I was surprised at that. So, and I know we have received new data from our people who have attended the open meetings that is a concern for them. So what is the next step, if I may, Mayor, is do we adopt this outright, or do we have to put it forward to our Planning Commission and ORC to come up with adoption language?
Yeah, let's adopt this, and then if the Planning Commission or ORC feels a need, if we include this in our documents, then we can deal with that. You come forward, both of you, Planning and ORC would come forward with a recommendation to TC, and we'll take it from there. But I think our mission right now is to, if we agree with this, we had Chief Brown and Sergeant Armentrout work with Dick for 4 meetings, and I'm comfortable.
And we
with
also had, people from the Planning Commission there. Well, I don't know if they're from the Planning Commission. We had people from the plan. Yeah. Yes, that's correct. So I just wanted to throw that out there. Also, keep in mind too, that if you adopt the plan, then you're eligible for grant funding, because in the event of a disaster or a big emergency, because if you don't adopt the plan, and I'm not saying this to make you do it, but that's one of the stipulations that they have. So if you don't have, like you were just saying, if you don't have a plan, then you're not subject to be able to get
grant funding from the federal government.
Any other questions for Dick? Okay, so go ahead, Storm. Do you have one?
I move to adopt the updated 5-year hazard mitigation plan resolution as presented.
Is there a second on that? Second from George, a discussion on the motion to approve. All those in favor of the motion to approve, raise your hand. Opposed, 0. Patty, you want me to endorse both of these with a witness of both of them? And then is Dick getting a copy? I knew that.
And you can just send it to me if you want to, it doesn't mean. Okay. I want to thank everybody here, the mayors and councilmen, for your time, for your trip. Thank you. Where you driving out to? Morgan County as well.
Oh.
So, and actually, they got to train you in.
Oh, yeah.
So hopefully that's at the ground downhill since it's raining. Safe travel. Safe travel.
Thank you. See you, Zach.
There you go. All right, my friend. Appreciate it. Yes,
All
sir.
right.
You guys have a good day.
Thank you. Okay, what do we got now, Nina?
Discussion and action regarding declaration of Agnes May Green Tillman Day. Wellman?
Storm, that's,
Wyman.
Storm, you want to go
That's-
ahead and handle that?
Yeah, so this is, it's Agnes May Green Twyman. She was born in Harpers Ferry on January 15th, 1924, and passed away exactly 100 years later on Jan 15th, 2024. She was an upstanding and active member of the Harpers Ferry Bolivar community. She attended both the Grandview School and Storer College, worked at the Old Cliffside Motel, and was a lifetime member of the First Zion Baptist Church. And she now rests in town at Cedar Hill Cemetery. And we're grateful as a community to have known Agnes May Twyman, both Harpers Ferry and Bolivar. And there's a nearly identical version of this proclamation that's going to be brought before Bolivar Town Council. Her family has been here for many generations, and survivors of hers live here still. It's fitting that we honor her in February, which is Black History Month. The African-American community of Harpers Ferry and Bolivar may not be as large as it was in 1924 when Ms. Twyman was born, but it remains a significant and important part of our local heritage. And I hope you'll join me in supporting this declaration, which was sent out to everybody and is publicly made. So I move to adopt the declaration of Agnes May Green Twyman Day as presented.
Second on the motion to approve. Second from Chris. Discussion on the motion. Nina?
Is there a specific day? Like, is it January? Is it-
January 15th to
Okay.
be Agnes May Twyman Day.
Any other discussion? All those in favor of the motion, raise your hand. Opposed? 0.
Sorry, who was the second on that?
Chris,
Chris.
his turn.
All right, so we are at 8A, 8B, discussion and action on establishing the Dark Skies Committee. I want Storm you to weigh in on this. And then Zach. Zach, why don't you go ahead and start?
Okay.
You said Storm first and then Zach, and then you
Did I?
said Zach started.
Oh, well, I was looking at the agenda item, and then Storm, I think you have some discussion on this also you want to share.
So start with Zach.
So we're going to start with Zach
Yeah.
first.
Okay. I submitted this as an item for discussion action before I had read the potential draft dark sky ordinance. And now that I have, it's changed my perspective on this a little bit. So I think it's important. It's tricky because we're discussing these in two different sections. I think it's important that we establish both a dark sky and street lighting ordinance and a committee for the purposes of enforcing the ordinance. Otherwise, it would fall to the ordinance compliance officer, who is not usually here after nightfall. So, yeah, this has changed a little bit. And it's tricky to talk about one and not the other. But I support the creation of a committee that would help enforce a potential dark sky ordinance.
Okay, thanks, Zach. Storm?
Yes, to sum it up, I think we'd be putting the horse before the cart. To be putting this ordinance as it is forward I'll say in general, I enthusiastically support having a dark sky ordinance and feel like we have a wealth of knowledge in town to achieve it. But I feel this draft is flawed in some ways. I appreciate the work that went into it.
I think he's
Um,
talking about ordinance, point of
Yeah.
order.
Yeah, sorry, Storm, we're on 8C, which is the discussion and action related to establishing a committee, not the draft ordinance. I defer this.
Yes.
Yeah.
I'm prefacing.
Sorry.
Mrs. Whereas,
Go ahead.
so I believe that a committee is warranted to do a draft of the ordinance first before we start about talking about enforcement, before we talk about even what the proper organs are. And I would like to make a motion, but out of respect for the process as we've had it, I won't do that right now. And I can go into more details about why I feel like it should be a committee's task to do this.
All right, any other stuff? Go ahead, Roberta first, then George.
Yes, and I assume, Zach wanted to change it to discussion only tonight, so I thought that was approved. But in regards to this committee, we're way beyond committees. And I think Zach is asking for a committee to enforce what might become the dark sky ordinance. So I think there's a couple things on the table here. So we're way beyond committees. The history of this I'm going to present in my presentation, but the committee was started way back in 2007 by two people. And that progressed into the Planning Commission, under the Planning Commission, and those two persons continued it under the Planning Commission as part of an ad hoc committee under the Planning Commission. And that continued until 2019. And that is where the committee stayed. And if we are going to move forward with the committee tonight, then I think we should honor the history of where that committee was. And that was an ad hoc committee under the Planning Commission to develop the ordinance, not to enforce the ordinance. So again, we've got two things going on here. But I think we're way beyond committees. I think it's time, as I'm going to present tonight. And so I would like to really postpone any action on this. So I'd like to make a motion right now to postpone any action to decide that there's a dark sky committee tonight and where that committee will be placed.
I second that.
Discussion. I have a discussion. I'm not sure what your motion is, Roberta.
I'd like to make a motion. I repeat the motion.
I know what you said, but I don't know what it means.
Okay.
Or explain it to me.
Okay, sure. I would like the town council to postpone action on deciding to have another dark sky committee to do whatever the responsibilities that they decide, I'm summarizing. It's not, but I think, again, we're beyond committees. I think I'm asking to postpone the action to decide on a dark skies committee tonight and where that will be placed, because
Okay,
I think it's premature.
Okay, thank you. I don't think we're beyond committee, Roberta. Myself, I don't think we're beyond committee. You put this draft together, correct?
I worked on it. Yes, sir.
Okay. And this was, as I read your agenda requests for this, coming from ORC, is that correct?
It is under review by all committees. We have issued it to all committees.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay. But on your agenda request, it's coming under the heading of ORC, correct?
Yes, because it currently is old business of the ORC. Yes,
okay. Did all of the members of the ORC, were they aware that you were working on this?
Yes.
They were?
Yes.
Okay. Did they get copies of this?
They were distributed copies at the last meeting.
Okay.
And part of that, we did not know that you were working on.
Point of order, Mr.
George, let me finish. I'm just trying to get I'm trying to straighten in my head where we are with this thing and where, Roberta, where you would like to go, okay? Are you suggesting that you have what, 3 maybe agenda items dealing with the dark sky and
Yep.
there's 3 or 4, whatever it was? Are
Just
you
3.
suggesting that we're not gonna take action on any of those, right?
So we're on agenda item 8C.
Yeah, I know where we are, but I want to know where you want to go.
That agenda item 8C is not my agenda item.
Okay,
Okay, and so it's totally different from what you're asking me right now. You're talking about agenda item 6 something or other. Okay, totally different.
okay,
We're talking
so,
about agenda item 8C, sir.
okay. So I'm gonna come back to you now. Roberta is contending that this is committee to death and it doesn't need another committee to decide whether we want a dark sky committee, because Roberta feels, I'm paraphrasing, that we've gone through this ad nauseum. You have some feelings regarding a committee and the purpose of a committee on the item 6, item 8C. Where do you see the committee for agenda item 8C that Zach submitted?
I believe the confusion around this issue, the nature of how it's been brought up, and the state of this proposed ordinance that is a draft demonstrate exactly why we need a committee. So generally, I reiterate, I enthusiastically support a dark sky ordinance. This draft is almost completely disregards public safety and community needs beyond being able to better see the dark sky, which is a good goal. It frames Harper's Ferry as being equivalent to a wilderness area. Although we're surrounded by a national historical park, this is an active community and we live in a built environment where neighbors and visitors need to move around safely in the dark. This can be accomplished in the context of dark sky, but this draft is way off the mark.
Point of
More
order.
than just, I'm still speaking. And also, in particular, there is no reasonable standard for light trespass. Complying with this ordinance as written would require defining the laws of physics. I've reviewed dozens of dark sky ordinances, many from small towns, and this draft is draconian in its zeal to stamp out lighting. It goes well beyond what the purpose of the dark sky ordinance appears to be. Most standards include either foot candle or what's called the bug rating, arrive at a reasonable light quality level and its characteristics. As presented, this ordinance would be ripe for abuse because nearly any light at all could be deemed in violation, and the penalties for breaching it are steep. It would be all but too easy to penalize those who are out of favor and allow others in breach to go unmolested. Again, I want to see a dark sky ordinance passed, but it needs to be a responsible one, and this draft needs more than minor tweaking. There's more beyond what I've highlighted, and I do feel like we have people in town. We had a speaker today that and it doesn't need to take that long. I believe that we can get it done, but it needs to be done properly and correctly, and I don't think we're there.
Okay, but we're doing, Storm, what I want to deal with right now is resolve 8C. 8C is not the draft.
Saying that that's why he thinks that.
Yeah. So are you making any proposal or anything on agenda item 8C only, not the other 3 or 4?
We currently have a motion on the floor, so
With
we
a
have to
second,
vote on
sir.
Roberta's.
Yeah, I can't make a direct proposal, but I would say that rather than just pushing it off, that I believe that the answer is to put together a dark sky committee, as Zach had proposed at one point to do this, rather than to jump straight to enforcement or anything else.
Okay, what's the motion on the floor, Nina?
So the motion that was first said was motion to postpone any action on if there is a dark skies committee tonight and where that item should be placed.
And I seconded that.
Let's call for a vote.
Let the chair run the meeting, okay? I am thinking, read that one more time, Nina.
Motion to postpone any action on if there is a dark skies committee tonight and where that item should be placed.
Okay, we have a motion, we have a second.
And I request discussion.
Okay, any discussion? George, go ahead.
Thank you. And I thank you for your forbearance for the prolonged debate on the virtues of the ordinance draft. I believe that the horse is being put before the cart correctly by looking at the ordinance draft. It is a draft. I've taken a look at it. I was around for a great deal of this discussion by committee already. And this draft incorporates, is a summation, is a culmination of committee work done with the most up-to-date Dark Skies International standards brought to bear. Now, those two items, those two ingredients can be evaluated, certainly. And I think I'm not going to debate the virtues of Ms. Mead Curry's agenda items at this point, but let's at very least get this thing back on track. So take a look at the item itself and the process proposed before we derail those into a committee. Now, Ms. Mead Curry's motion that I seconded does not kill the idea of a committee. And in fact, I'm in favor of committee. But let's hear the actions proposed, and then when we have more time, perhaps at the next meeting, and we have the time for that, we'll get a committee going.
Okay, any other discussion?
Comment.
Zach?
Thank you.
Just another aspect that I want to, well, a couple things. I think in the past, everyone has expressed support of the idea of a dark sky ordinance. So I don't want to lose that in the weeds that there's a notion before us that a lot of us support and a lot of community members support. And I think that crossing the finish line is important for us to just keep in mind. But there's another aspect of this, which another reason I put forth this, the idea of a committee, is that it's a street lighting and dark skies ordinance, so that folks like Christian don't have to be called at 7 in the morning to deal with a street light replacement, or if a street light goes out, there's a group that could be contacted and could contact Potomac Edison to have streetlights replaced. So there's a function to this beyond, another committee looking at this ordinance. And so my concern now, after having read the draft ordinance and hearing these discussions, is that I don't want the idea of a draft ordinance to get lost in multiple committees, and I don't want to take away from ORC's efforts to review this. So I don't want to make this more complicated than it has to be.
Okay, any other discussion? Chris?
Yeah, I did want to clarify that in my mind, and as we've discussed this year, that ORC's duties are to take on things that are sent to them by planning, by the town council, by Parks and Rec, by whoever. And this is one that perhaps there is some committee, but I've been on town council now. This is my 3rd year, and I had no knowledge of any committee that was operating within town government, especially working on a new draft ordinance. It appeared 38 pages in front of me at the last ORC meeting, and we can talk about that later. I have some grave concerns about it. I think that a proper method would be to form the committee to look at the issues. And I guess that's all I want to say.
Okay, any other discussion? Storm, go ahead.
Yeah, just reiterating that a committee would be what would get this done and also achieve, Zach, what you have in mind, that it would both be the ordinance and also to make to have a draft ordinance that could be recommended, as well as recommendations for implementation, rather than jumping in before it's fully formed.
Okay, any other discussion? All those in favor of the motion, raise your hand.
Point of information.
Sorry, I'll read the motion
Yeah.
to make sure we're all clear on what we're voting on. Okay. Motion to postpone any action on if there is a dark skies committee tonight and where that item should be placed. And so all those in favor to postpone any action.
Opposed? Motion fails. Roberta, yes, ma'am.
I'd like to make a motion. I'd like to make a motion that town council request the planning commission shall reestablish the ad hoc committee, which was known as the Dark Sky Ordinance Committee under the planning commission, and shall work closely with the ORC chair to review the current draft of proposed new article 1306 titled Light Pollution, Energy Conservation, and Night Sky Conservation, as well as any subsequent revisions received, so the ORC can prepare a first and second reading of proposed article 1306.
I second that. May we have copies?
Sorry.
I'm going to ask this council while Roberta's looking for that council, when you have a motion to present to this body, I'd like you to try very hard to winnow that motion down to 1 or 2 sentences. There's been a practice, it seems, with several on this council to bring forward motions that it's like reading a term paper in college. We don't need to do that. Motions should be very simple, George, and very succinct. We don't need to go on ad nausea on a motion. Now, I'm not being critical. I'm just being, I think it's the best thing to do and it makes business sense. So do that what you want. So we have a huge motion here, and I'm not sure
Can I,
which one are we.
I'm gonna second it so that we can. actually, And then I have an amendment I'd like to propose.
Okay, so Roberta, the X is not the one you want, correct?
Yes,
Is that right?
correct.
Okay.
The bottom one, the 8IC is the one that we're discussing.
Planning Commission shall reestablish the ad hoc committee. Dark Sky Orders Committee, the Planning Commission, and shall work closely with the current.
If we have a second, may we move the discussion, move this along quickly?
I had an amendment, but I'd like to. put
Oh,
forward-
pardon me.
I just would like to amend that instead of it saying work closely with the ORC chair, it just says with the ORC.
I had that also.
I can second that.
All right. Any other discussion? Is there a discussion on the amended motion? George?
Very, very briefly, I think this accomplishes everything that everyone at this table has talked about with regard to a committee, while leaving the door open for the hearing the work on the ordinance draft. Thank you.
Chris?
I cannot support this motion as it stands because it's starting with the present draft ordinance, which to me is bizarre. And it would be better to start from scratch and get some ideas from the committee on what's actually needed.
Okay, thank you. Any other discussion? Okay, this is your second and final one, Roberta.
I understand, sir. We've already been starting from scratch since 2007, and you've had many alterations, and I'm going to present that tonight. And I think once you realize what I'm going to tell you tonight, I think basically you'll understand where this town is with their ordinance. And I also included in the motion, Chris, any subsequent revisions received. So we are going to have, or I would like, again, we're not talking about that tonight, right? Or we're not on that agenda item, but we are going to open this up to the public. We've already had multiple discussions from the comprehensive plan update, okay, regarding this night sky. You had members from the public that says, we're ready for this. It's time, it's past time. So I think I've included your concerns that there could be revisions, there could be changes, there are going to be public comment. I didn't leave that out, so.
Okay, so we have an amendment. Okay, Storm, let me reiterate so I know where I am in my mind, then I'll call on you. We have an amendment before us from Nina, which is removing the word chair from the amended motion.
Yes.
Just so I'm staying up ahead of this. Go ahead, Storm. All right,
You're
we're still
muted,
under discussion.
and you're muted.
Yeah, it's really not under this amendment, but it'll be on the main motion that I'd like to speak.
Okay,
Okay,
all
so
right.
vote on
Any other discussion on the amended motion? All those in favor of the amended motion, raise your hand. Opposed? Okay, it's 5 minus 5 plus 2 is 7. So it's 5-2. All right, now we go back to the main motion, which is, Nina?
The main motion is motion that town council requests the planning commission shall reestablish the ad hoc committee, which was known as the Dark Sky Ordinance Committee under the planning commission, and shall work closely with the ORC to review the current draft proposed new article 1306 light pollution, energy conservation, and night sky conservation, as well as any subsequent revisions received, so ORC can prepare for first and second reading of proposed Article 1306.
Okay. All right, discussion on that. Storm, go ahead.
Yeah, so I agree with Chris Craig about it even mentioning this current draft ordinance. I also I believe it should be answerable to town council, not to planning commission. I think it's more involved across areas of government for that. And also, I don't think it really has anything to do with ordinance review committee. And that's why I am opposing this motion in its entirety.
Okay. Any other discussion, Zach?
Just to note, from the perspective of someone who serves on planning, that putting this under planning could make sense. It's been mentioned in the comprehensive plan several times, and I could see that. It's just that if the subtext goal here is to move this forward quickly, planning commission does have a lot on its plate with the comprehensive plan. So I think we could take this on, but I wouldn't expect a quick turnaround if it's just planning, and that's what I'll say.
All right. Any other discussion? Chris?
Partly for that very reason, I think I would support the town council forming a committee that includes at least one member of the planning commission and then other members of the community, perhaps going beyond residents, business people, neighbors in Bolivar. We already have a park service. I think that we need a big picture before. Now, Roberta keeps saying that we have had all of these discussions, not in the last 3 years. I've been on the planning commission. I've chaired the planning commission. I have.
Chris, kindly direct your discussion to the chair, okay?
Okay. I have sat on every town council meeting, nearly, and I have heard no discussion about dark skies other than a general support of the concept, and that it is in the comprehensive plan. And I have also heard that there is somewhere a draft that was created back in 2017 or at some point. I have never seen that, and maybe I'm partly responsible for not seeing it, but I just don't see that we've had any sensible, deliberate action on this.
Okay,
we need to start from scratch.
Thank you. Any other discussion? All those in favor of the motion, raise your hand. Opposed? Motion fails.
What was the vote, please?
4-3.
4-3, so it passes.
Sorry, other 3-4, opposite direction.
All right. All right, we're on now 8D.
No,
Nina,
well,
where are we?
Are you doing all of the 8s?
are we completely done with this then?
We're done with it.
I'd like to make a motion.
Someone want to make a motion?
I'd like to make a motion.
Go ahead.
I move to establish a dark skies committee under town council whose purpose shall be to develop a draft dark skies ordinance suitable for the town, whose composition will consist of one member of the planning commission, one town council member, one member of Historic Landmarks, one member designated by the mayor, and one at-large Corporation of Harpers Ferry resident whose duties will be concluded after presenting its recommendations and draft ordinance to town council.
Awful long, motion.
Long
Is it?
motion, I
Yeah,
confess.
I think it needs to be reread.
I'll handle that.
Okay, right.
Any a second on the motion? I'll second. Discussion on the motion.
I'd like to amend that
Address it
motion.
to the chair.
I'd like to amend that motion.
Go ahead.
I'd like to volunteer as the, town council member for that committee.
You
I don't
can't
think we can put
volunteer.
that,
Voted on it.
Why not?
because we have to establish it before we can appoint members to it.
Any other discussion on the motion? Hearing none, all in favor of the motion, raise your hand. Opposed? Motion carries 5-2. All right, now we move to Nina, are we now on 8D?
Correct. Discussion and action on adjustment to town project approval process to include HLC certificate of appropriateness as provided in Article 131.09.
Zach,
All right, can I do a quick point of information related to the last motion?
go ahead.
The last motion was a motion to establish a committee.
Council,
Just being clear, we're not appointing anyone at this time.
no one's applying. Okay.
Thank you. Okay, thank you.
Nina, are you handling this or is Zach handling this one?
The HLC certificate.
The HLC, you want to go ahead and take the lead on that?
Sure. Yes, this is one that I submitted. I'll try and keep this short. I did notice a discrepancy in the written ordinances versus the town project approval flow chart. I completely respect Ed's words that he gave this morning as to the previous reasoning. I think the key reason I would want to switch to including the certificate of appropriateness involves the portion that includes a public hearing. I think that's something that got lost in the process of switching to just having the ordinance compliance officer do the flow chart as originally, or as the flow chart was originally created. I emailed this out earlier. If anybody wants to see a draft that I'll make a motion on in a second. If you want to pass this down. So in order to just simplify the process, I would move to adjust the town policy for project permit approval for new construction as presented.
Okay. Okay. Come
I have a
on.
point of order.
Go ahead, George.
Thank you. I actually support what he's talking about, and I like to speak to this as the person who's going to lead a HLC meeting 2 nights from now, because Ms. Adele is out of state. I believe that this is out of order, however, because I've researched the statutes, state and town. And what I found in the states is in 826A 5 that we are not required if we have backup. I spoke with our attorney on this, as we're empowered to, by the way, in our ordinances to clarify matters and enable the operation of the committee. And he said, you don't have to have an HLC, but if you have one, you have to follow state law on it. Good enough. Thank you, Mr. Sayre. Well, I took a look at state law. It says we may have certificates of appropriateness, but we don't have to. So it's up to us. So then I took a look at our orders to figure out who makes the decision on whether we go certificates of appropriateness or something else. And in our ordinance 13108, it says, and I quote, that the end of the first paragraph says, shall have the power and authority, and then it goes colon, and it lists items A through N. And item N says, so it will continue the thought, the HLC shall have the power and authority to adopt rules and regulations concerning the operation of the HLC. Now, I know this sounds kind of bizarre saying that it's superior to the governing body of the town council.
Are you still on a point of order, George?
That's my point of order. So I'm saying is I'm just providing the backup for the
Okay.
point of order is this, Greg. As bizarre as it sounds, the state has given the Landmarks Commission of Harpers Ferry the power to determine on its own what forms its quote, rules and regulations concerning the operation of the Historic Landmarks Commission is. So with all due respect to your proposal to give Landmarks back the certificate of appropriateness, I think it's Landmark's decision to make. And by means of ordinance, I don't think that's the best thing, Greg. I think the council should make those decisions. But according to our laws and backed up by state law, that's just the way it is. And I would appreciate guidance, and this is separate from my point of order tonight, because in 48 hours I have to lead a meeting in which people really, if we're going to go certificates of appropriateness, there are going to be 3 citizens in this town who want them or want to begin the process.
Before I rule on the point of order, Zach, I want to hear from you.
Realizing we're not in discussion on this, I would just point out that the edit to the town policy flow chart, which is what I wanted to address tonight.
Yeah.
My suggested edit takes the current flow chart as it exists and adds in essentially 3 steps, 2.5. The first of which is HLC determining if the certificate of appropriateness is required for a specific project. So it essentially allows HLC to make the determination that George is suggesting on a case-by-case basis. And since this is not a motion that to change ordinance, it is simply a motion to change the flow chart for how information is distributed when it comes in.
Okay. Chris, I'm not a lawyer, but I have followed the zoning ordinance overhaul since it was done 2015, perhaps, and it is my understanding that it was our lawyer's advice, Mark Sad's advice, not follow the process of certificates of appropriateness, but instead the permitting would be under the BZA and the OCO in the process. Now, what I have never gotten to an understanding of is why we left certificates of appropriateness in our ordinances. What I have been told, not from a lawyer, but from people who were involved in the writing of the overhaul in zoning ordinances, was that it remained because it is an option that towns can choose when in the permitting process. Harpers Ferry chose otherwise. And again, I'm not a lawyer. I think this is something that before we need to take any action, that we should take any action on, that we should bring this to at least Mr. Sayre's advice and counsel, and possibly, you know, a land use attorney beyond that. I think it's a big issue. This was discussed a lot when we developed the flow charts last year, and we had input and involved all of planning, all of HLC, all of the commissions, BZA, and I think we need to think more about this and get some good advice.
Okay, based on what I'm hearing, George, point of order is not taken. I'm going to request this council that we defer this to, as you suggest, Chris. And George, you can be part of this conversation.
Thank you.
With Mr. Sayre. I would believe that I'd like for you to also get involved with that, Zach. And let's, you know, I agree. Let's put this thing to bed, but let's put it to bed properly. Go ahead, Zach.
This is for the chair. I'd like to entertain a motion then that the town postpone approving new construction projects until we have this sorted. Because right now we have a discrepancy between the
Roberta, put,
method,
Roberta,
the,
I've had my
put your
up for
hand
quite a
down.
long time,
He
sir.
has the floor, okay? Put your hand down. Thank you.
I'm sorry. I've had my hand up for quite a long time.
Okay, but we've been engaged up here. I know your hand's been up. I will call, get to you. Go ahead, Zach.
yeah, so I would move that we hold approving new construction permits until we, because we, sorry, put a hold on approving new construction permits until we sort this issue out, because we currently have a set of ordinances that say one thing and a potentially a zoning ordinance and a current flow chart for the OCO to follow, which are in conflict. And I like George said, there's meetings coming up with a number of new construction projects in the historic district that would be affected one way or another. And I don't know. I just want to make sure that we're clear on how we proceed until we get this sorted out.
You were prepared to make a motion,
Yes.
but I'm going to hold you on that motion because I want to hear from Roberta.
Thank you. I have several questions, and one of the first question is to Zach. May I ask Zach a question? Chair?
You direct your question to the chair.
Yes, may I ask a question?
You direct your question to
Zach,
me.
okay. Chair, I would like Zach to respond to this question. And Zach, the reason that you changed the 3 processes on this flow chart is because our ordinance currently says it shall go this way and we have to issue a certificate of appropriateness. Is that why you corrected it?
Right there.
From my reading, it says that a project permit cannot be issued unless a certificate of appropriateness is at least considered. And so, you know, this all started with a confusing conversation that I had because I didn't understand the process. And so I immediately went to the ordinance where I thought it would be. And seeing this language and knowing that we took an oath to uphold the town's ordinances, I just want to make sure that we are crystal clear on which path to go forward.
Okay.
So
I have some
Go
continuing
ahead.
comments.
No, go ahead.
Okay, thank you. So, in my professional experience, having a certificate of appropriateness in a historical district is the only teeth you have. You lose it, you have no teeth. Your historic district becomes weak. Your historic review becomes weak. I think if you had a previous attorney make that determination, I'd like to see that in writing. So if you have it somewhere in your meeting minutes or you have some opinion of him in writing, I'd like to have that presented to town council. Also, I think if you are going to involve other agencies, I think you should include the Department of Secretary of Interior, a representative from them. I think you ought to include someone from a very well reputable architectural preservation society or a architectural preservation firm that is well versed on this historical preservation aspect. And I think I've had to issue certificate of appropriateness myself. I've had to do the reviews. I think if this town loses it, we're going to be going down a horrible slippery slope, and I'd hate for you to lose your historical district, because if you don't maintain your historical district, you don't maintain the guidelines, the Historical Preservation National Park Service or the Secretary of State can revoke the historical district, period.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Chris.
The lawyer who advised us on the zoning overhaul was Mark Sad, who was recommended to us by the state historic landmarks office. And I do have concerns about Zach's motion, which so far I think has not been seconded. But yes, I think that we have on new construction that we have some issues to work out. We recognized that when we made the flow charts, that was on the to-do list sent to Planning Commission some time ago and to others. But I think that taking action on delaying any permits until the town gets its act together puts us at great risk of being defeated in a pretty ugly lawsuit.
Okay. Nina, read the, I'll be right with you, Storm. George will be next, and then you, Storm. But I have a question for Nina. What is the motion on the floor?
I'm going to defer to that because I.
Did you
I started to, you asked me to hold it. and
Okay,
I'll
all right, so
withdraw
we have no
any-
motion on the floor.
No motion.
Okay, all right, so who did I call first? Storm, then
Storm,
George.
Storm.
Go ahead, Storm.
Motion on the floor, so we're talking about the general issue again, correct?
Yes,
Sure.
we're just general discussion on
General
COAs.
Yeah, I didn't look at it deeply. I definitely feel like we need to contact our attorneys based on the public comment that was made, and the history that was outlined there. Beyond that, I'm generally not in favor of the certificate of appropriateness process. I lived for about 20 years in a historic district that used that process. And it was arbitrary to the point of ridiculousness. The standards shifted and didn't always align with any rooted historical standards. And it was more or less at the whim of people on the boards. And if you look at that neighborhood today, it does not look an awful lot like what its historical appearance was. And I feel like the process we have now is solid. Appendix A is being revised. I do agree with the point that was made from the outset about having more engagement and transparency, but I don't think that this is the way.
Okay, thank you, George.
I'm just gonna, I don't know. I don't think anything's coming out of this item. In 48 hours, I have to sit with 5 clients and 3 of them are building houses. And absent a call from an attorney giving me the proper authorization, I'm inclined to go with what our ordinance is. And good, bad, or ugly, it's what Zach has indicated here. And there are people who are going to show up requesting, as it states in our ordinance, that they'd be allowed to apply for certificate of appropriateness. And unless this council wants to tell me not to, and I don't think that's in order, that's what I'm going to do. And I would hope that if I begin this process and we have to pull back, then we can pull back. But I can only go with what's in the ordinance, because we spoke this when somebody's dropping $500,000 on a house, and I can't lead them down a dark path. It's not legal.
Okay, only at the top, George. Only at the top.
Yeah, well,
All right.
we'll do it. We'll follow the law. That's what I'm saying.
It's lonely at the
All right.
top. Is that what
He said, yeah.
I would suggest, or here, I'll make one last motion on this, that the town, a representative of the town, get a legal opinion on which path to go for prior to our next regular meeting, so that we at least have that to go on.
I think we need more than one legal opinion, and we need an expert in the preservation field opinion.
Roberta, let's start with it. Go ahead and put a motion on the floor.
So, yeah, I move that a representative of the town reach out to our legal representative to get a clear opinion on this
In writing.
prior to our next regular town council meeting.
Is there a second on the motion?
second,
Yeah, second from Chris. I think he beat you, George. Any discussion on the motion?
I'd like to amend the
Go ahead.
motion. That the expert advice includes an architectural preservation who is very familiar with historical districts and certificate of appropriateness.
Second on that amended motion. Hearing no second to motion, amended motion fails. Any other discussion on the motion? Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion, raise your hand. Opposed, 6-1, passed. All right, where are we now?
Discussion and action on establishment of an old-time Christmas committee.
Oh, boy.
Go ahead, Ted.
So I'm the one who brought this. I'll try and keep this one brief as well. Shifting gears entirely now. This stems from a request from the Merchants Association that originally came to the Parks and Rec Commission. They, in short, the Merchants Association, who has hosted and facilitated Old Time Christmas for many years, is not in a position to continue at that capacity, and was asking if Parks and Rec would be interested in taking some of that responsibility. the immediate response from Parks and Rec is that we're only a few people, and that's a lot of things going on at that time of year, especially. So Parks and Rec themselves was not that interested. A few of us met with members of the Merchants Association, and the idea came up that perhaps we bring to town council the idea of establishing an old time Christmas committee that could be made up of members from, well, as many people are interested, because there's a lot of work that would need to be done. But at least several members from our different committees that could help support facilitating a tradition that's been a part of this town for 50 plus years. And my fear is that if the town council does not take action on this, the merchants won't be able to support that celebration as they usually do. And this is an excellent opportunity to engage the community and for everyone to have a part in a celebration. So I don't know if we want to discuss this before any motions. I'm prepared to make a motion if needed.
Go ahead.
So I move that the town establish an old time Christmas committee, which I actually don't have my paper in front of me, including members from Parks and Rec. Thank you. Oh, and I didn't write it on here either. Including members of Parks and Rec, Town Council, and the Merchants Association.
I second.
Who seconded? Okay, Chris. Discussion on the motion?
The merchants who I talked to about Old Time Christmas, it sounded like a lot of the lack was in really leadership and who's gonna keep the checkbook and that type of thing. I think this is worth trying for a year.
Yes.
I don't know whether if you want to amend your motion to that effect, I would change my second to that. But it's something that I really think that our business district must own, but that perhaps if town government can give them some support, at least temporarily, that it. I would hate to see Old Time Christmas fail.
Okay. You're gonna put that in the amended motion?
Are you?
Did we get a second, by the way, on Zach?
Yeah.
Okay, so Chris.
Chair will entertain. I'll amend the motion to specify the 2024 Old Time Christmas celebration. Is that good? For
Yes, and the second accepts that, so we don't really need to vote on the amendment. We just vote on the motion now.
Okay, you changed the main motion. Oh, okay, all right. So we have a main motion to set it up for 2024 Old Time Christmas only, right?
Move that the town, so the full motion including that is move that the town establish an old time Christmas committee, including members of Parks and Rec, Town Council, and Merchants Association for the 2024 season.
Okay, and then we had a second on that?
from Chris.
Oh, from Chris, okay. Discussion, Zach.
I should also add that in part of this, I don't have the budget in front of me, but traditionally the Merchant Association would come to Budget and Finance and request an amount of money to help facilitate. Under this idea of an old time Christmas committee, those funds would not be transferred to the Merchants Association, but would instead stay part of the town through this old time Christmas committee. And so I don't know if that, I just want to be clear on that before we make any votes.
Yeah, you're not suggesting that we are turning the fund over to the Merchants Association, but we should.
All I'm saying is in the past, they have made a request
Right.
of Budget and Finance. I anticipate this year they will not make that request. Instead, this new committee would likely make
Okay.
a similar request.
Okay, any other discussion?
Storm.
Go ahead, Storm.
Yeah, I think it's a good idea, but for sure it means that the finances will be on us. It does not mean that, say, the Merchants Association, or if we're doing it in conjunction with Bolivar, still could not contribute, but it would mean that it would be on us to do that, and of course, pulling it together. But if the alternative is that Old Time Christmas would falter or fade, that would be pretty sad. So yeah, I think it's pretty solid.
Go ahead, Zach.
Just to also clarify that I totally agree with what Storm said in our initial meeting. it was suggested that the Merchants Association would still cover some decorations and greenery in the lower town, and Bolivar would cover the Christmas parade and I believe the trolley system that was bringing folks around. So it's being spread out. The ownership of this event becomes more of a community-wide thing. And again, emphasizing that we need as many volunteers as we can because it's not complex work, but there's a lot of moving pieces that need to be worked out. So,
Okay.
yeah.
Other discussion? Go ahead, Storm. Second and last.
Quickly, I think it's also an exciting opportunity to spread old time Christmas throughout the town, and that it might not just be something confined to Lower Town.
Yeah. Thank you. All those in favor of the motion, raise your hand. Okay. Opposed, 0. All right, now we're back to police report.
Roberta has her.
Go ahead, Roberta.
Yes, sir. The recorder made a point at the beginning of the meeting that maybe, and watching the time. So my question to the chair is, are the town reports critical to hear tonight? And can we move them to a special meeting? And, historic landmarks and planning commission reports, if there's no report from either of them tonight, can they also move their information to a special meeting? That we can maybe get some of these other critical things done tonight, that some people in the audience are here for.
Well, there's a lot of things in here, Roberta, that we need to get through.
Is there anything?
Budget and
absolutely-
finance, we got to get through all of that.
Are they critical, sir? Here
Yeah,
tonight?
yeah, budget and finance.
Is there 1 or 2 items that can be crossed off that
No.
list?
I'll cross off.
Tree committee.
Landmark.
Let's just see,
As we go down the list, people can opt to have their
Sure.
items moved to a special meeting
Yeah.
instead of trying to call them out now, because I think we're gonna.
well,
Okay.
All right, so,
we've approved the agenda, so to
Correct.
make an adjustment on the agenda now, it's going to require, Storm, you remember, was it a 2/3 vote or? I think it's a 2/3 vote.
Yeah, 2/3, because it breaks the regular order.
Yeah.
The recorder just asked us to be mindful of the time. That's what I'm doing,
Okay.
sir.
okay, so we'll start with town reports, the report from the police department.
Same time, you have the report in front of you, or any questions or concerns that you have for the police department. I would just like to address that, I'm once again, welcome, the town council members to, be a part of the police department and come out and ride with the officers. We are doing more directed patrols and trying to show our presence and making our presence known. I'd like for you guys to know what we're trying to do for our community and serving them abroad and providing a good service for them.
Thank you.
Thanks, John. You got the ordinance code officers report in front of you. If you have any issues, let me know and I will get with Kevin. Let's move to budget and finance. Storm, you want to go ahead and start that?
Yeah, I'll skip the report in the interest of time and jump straight to number 1. Discussion and action regarding opioid settlement funds, financial compliance. This is required. The state requires us to put this on our books in a specific place. Any funds we receive will go into this specific spot. So this is just a bookkeeping move. I move to move all opioid settlement funds to general fund budget line 367 other grants.
Second on the motion, second from Chris. Discussion on the motion to move opioid to 367. Hearing none, all in favor of the motion, raise your hand. Opposed, 0. Go ahead,
Okay,
Storm.
Number 2, discussion and action regarding fiscal year 24 general fund budget revision number 3. Everyone has received this. Again, the auditor's office requires this when there's a material change in our finances. If you do have questions, Deb can describe exactly what the moves are. I believe this needs to be done by roll call vote.
Correct.
Mm-hmm.
And I move to approve fiscal year 2024 general fund budget revision number 3 as presented.
Second, Nina, go ahead and
Oh,
take roll.
sorry, I have to read the full resolution. There's a resolve, or
Yes, at a regular session.
at a regular session of the municipal council held February 12th, 2024. The following order was made and entered, subject the revision of the levy estimate budget of the town of Harpers Ferry, West Virginia. The following resolution was offered. resolved that subject to approval of the state auditor as ex officio chief inspector of public offices, the municipal council does hereby direct the budget be revised prior to the expenditure or obligation of funds for which no appropriation or insufficient appropriation currently exists, as shown on budget revision number 3, a copy of which is entered as part of this record. The adoption of the foregoing resolution having been moved by Storm D. Costanza and duly seconded by, I'll second, Nina Anna Armstrong. The vote therefore was as follows. So now we can do roll call.
Go ahead, call roll.
Zach Morse.
Yes.
Chris Craig.
Aye.
Storm D. Costanza.
Yes.
Aye. Okay. George Owens.
Yes.
Roberta Mead Curry. Aye. All right. Nina Anna Armstrong. Yes. Greg Vaughn.
Yes.
All right. Motion passes. Whereupon, and then we'll just name me. Nina Anna Armstrong declared said resolution duly adopted, and it is therefore adjudicated and ordered that said resolution be, and the same is hereby adopted as so stated above, and the town recorder is authorized to fix his signature on the attached request for revision to approved budget to be sent to the state auditor for approval.
Thank you. Go ahead, Storm, and take number 3, post office.
Post office parking lot repair. The maintenance department was made aware that a section of high foot traffic area of the post office parking lot that presents a safety hazard and liability. They made a recommendation, assessed the situation, made a recommendation, did receive multiple bids. I moved to spend up to $1,500 for Huey's paving to repair the pothole in the post office parking lot pending receipt. Actually, that's no longer applicable. Post office parking lot out of 440 City Hall maintenance 2 buildings.
Second on the motion, second from Chris, discussion on the motion. All those in favor of the motion, raise your hand. Opposed, 0. Go ahead, Storm.
Number 4, discussion and action regarding maintenance department equipment. Again, the maintenance department brought this to us, to Budget and Finance of there's currently a tractor mower in need of over $1,500 of repair. It's an older consumer grade machine. This purchase of a commercial grade machine will produce better results, be better suited to heavy use, and is likely to require less repair in the future. I moved to spend up to $5,500 to purchase a Cub Cadet commercial grade tractor mower and grass bagger attachment for the maintenance department out of 977 street and transportation capital expenditures and for maintenance department to seek opportunities to sell the current mower.
Second on the motion, second from George, discussion on the motion, Roberta.
Does this dollar amount, require a bid? That's quite a lot of money to spend all at once.
No.
I don't think we can do it. There was not, and there has been extensive research that was provided.
Thank you.
Any other discussion? All those in favor of the motion, raise your hand. Opposed, 6-1. Need to take the floor.
All right. 5, discussion and action regarding payment for work performed at Harper Cemetery.
Funding request that was part of the Harper Cemetery ask for fiscal year 2024. Repair of several headstones in the cemetery required work by experts and their expert equipment. I moved to pay Moss Works $3,145 for work performed at Harper Cemetery out of 906 Arts and Humanities, pending their securing a Harper's Ferry business license.
Second.
Any discussion? All right, all those in favor? All those opposed? All right.
Thanks. Want the record to reflect I recused myself.
Yep. All right, next is 6, discussion and action regarding fiscal year 2024 water budget revision number 2.
Yes, the same requirement from the auditor's office to provide a budget revision when there are material changes. I move to approve the fiscal year 2024 water budget revision number 2 as presented.
Second on the motion to approve. Second from Chris. Discussion on the motion. All those in favor of the motion, raise your hand. Opposed? None. Storm?
Discussion and action regarding Waterworks annual maintenance of mains contract. I move to assign the Harpers Ferry Waterworks maintenance of mains contract to Green Ridge Contractors as of February 12, 2024.
Second on the motion. Second from Chris. Discussion on the motion. Hearing none. All in favor of the motion? Opposed? 0.
All right, and now we're moving on to the water department.
Water Department, general report from Steve. You all should have, Zach pass these out.
For copy in the interest of time, I'll just hit a couple of things here, the production statistics.
Steve, could you raise your voice, please?
Sure. Okay, and so the production statistics unaccounted for water, we produced that the unaccounted for water was 36%. It's calculated, although we did use estimated bills for most of our customers this past month. Although that estimated bill was estimated over 12 months, which last time we did that, we only pulled 1 month prior in the estimate. So anyhow, we had 5.7 million gallons of water filtered. We had unaccounted for water of 2.1 million gallons. Tank levels ran at 64 to 93%, with a mean daily of about 78%. The median was 80%. The only other thing I'm going to hit, you've got the rest. Well, we have our Department of Health sanitary survey that was completed with no significant deficiencies. The next survey will be is anticipated in 2027. The DEP permit was renewed. That's a 5-year permit. That was renewed. That was up for to expire on January the 31st. So that's all in place. Then one other item I would hit on the report that I put your attention to tomorrow evening from 6:30 to 8 p.m. at the Hospice of the Panhandle Education Center in Kearneysville. The Potomac Valley Audubon Society will be conducting its monthly program, which this month is assessing and addressing forever chemicals in West Virginia waters. Brief description of that presentation is given, but essentially the Jenna Dodson and Maria Russo from the West Virginia Rivers Coalition will be the experts providing that information.
Any questions for Steve? Thank you, Steve. Thank you. Yes. Mike? What are we?
Report this time. I will have something for you next time.
Okay. All right.
Mayor, could I just mention something on water that Elk Run Watershed Committee will be meeting Thursday at 2 here at Town Hall, and something related to what Roberta asked about earlier. There's going to be a watershed walk planned at that meeting along Elks Run, and part of that will be some testing for PFAS. And so I'm not going to encourage hordes of people to come to that meeting because we're wanting to keep the walk a small group, but that's something that's on the horizon.
Thank you. Next agenda item, discussion action regarding appointment to the Water Commission. You have a individual who has submitted a request to serve on the Water Commission. Chair will entertain a nomination.
Who is the individual?
You should have it in your packet. Storm?
I nominate Chris Craig to serve on the Water Commission.
Thank you. Anyone, any other nominations? Hearing none, do a roll call, Nina.
Yeah. Zachary Morse,
Yes.
Chris Craig,
Yes.
George Owens,
Yes.
Roberta Mead Curry,
Yes.
Nina Anna Armstrong, yes. Storm Geek Stanhope.
Yeah, he voted yes.
Oh, I already.
I saw a nod,
Okay.
and I vote yes.
Okay.
Congratulations, Chris.
Thank you.
All right, tree commission report, annual report, you should have that in your packet, Ron.
Annual report, I assume you can just read the annual report then.
Go ahead.
Proposed changes to the tree planting standards. This came before you a while ago and it got somehow it got hidden in the weeds, but it's back again, and the tree ordinance. I'm really sleepy. I hate to tell you, but the tree ordinance requires that we come to you supposedly annually to make these changes. We don't have changes needed for this annually, but the proposed changes are on this page that you got that describe what they are. They're pretty minor. And then the problem is that those pages that it refers to would be for the original, because once you start making modifications on this, the page numbers get all moved around. So it's just sorry about that, but the original is on the town website. But do you have any questions for any of the changes that have been proposed, or do you want me to go through them individually?
No, go ahead, Chris, you got a question?
Christy was kind enough to do some emailing back and forth about the tree plan, and there were a couple of things in the plan that suggested that zoning ordinance changes were needed. And one was on page 4. It says the town zoning ordinance should be amended to include site plan requirements to preserve trees on steep slopes. The next one was on page 12. Amend the zoning ordinance to include requirements for tree information on site plans, tree protection during construction, tree planting requirements to offset heat gain and slow stormwater runoff, for example, street trees and trees in parking lots over a certain size.
What page is that on, Chris?
That was on page 12.
But
and
on what her 2 pages?
Christy, my understanding is that's been there for some time. But
Well, the first one, which is trees on private land, that was in the original tree plan and standards report. It was worded amendments to the town zoning ordinances now being considered. Now, I have no clue what happened to them, but that supposedly that town plan moved on and it didn't get considered. So now we're saying the town zoning ordinance should be amended to include site plan requirements to preserve trees on steep slopes. That's what that one's about. And the other one, what page was that on?
Page 12. It's number 2 in that list. No, in the whole plan.
Okay. Okay, no, but not on. This also is action. It's listing it again as an action item. So it's essentially the same thing, but it's listing it as action item. In one place it tells you what we want to do, but then when we spell out action items, it lists it again.
Okay.
Yeah.
So to your knowledge, those 2 actions were never taken by the town?
Not that I know of.
And is it your opinion that they ought to be still?
We're definitely on steep slopes, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So I guess do we need a motion?
Well, we're going to,
Oh, Roberta's got
I see her hand, but
Okay.
I want to make sure I know what you want us to do before I call on Roberta. The changes you're suggesting, Christy, that you have annotated in your plan,
Yeah.
you're expecting the council to approve them.
Yeah, I'm hoping that,
Okay.
and they're all in this, they're bracketed and
I read 'em all.
underlined, but what's in this?
I read them all.
Um,
Roberta,
Yes, thank you, Mayor. It's my understanding, and again, I think Chris kind of said it all. I think you're asking maybe for changes to the zoning ordinance, changes to our codes, and maybe changes to your tree standards plan. I know you had brought that forward from the planning commission when you are to the planning commission, and I know the tree commission brought it forward to the ORC. we pushed it back to you because you asked the ORC to push it back to you because you were gonna make some more.
No, that was ordinance change. That's not to be confused with these standards. This is different.
Okay, well.
This
and
is
again-
not an ordinance.
Okay, let me finish. But this is part of our ordinance.
No.
Okay, Chrissy, let me finish, please. All right. So what I understand you might need to do, and what I'm gonna suggest is that you come back to the ORC.
No, this doesn't go to the ORC. I specifically asked them
No.
if this goes to the ORC and was told, no, it doesn't, because it's not an ordinance.
Okay. Christie, let her finish. I'm gonna turn the floor over to Roberta. Make your point.
Okay, sir, it's my understanding, reading some of this.
Address your comment to me, not to.
I did say, sir. I did
Okay.
say, sir.
Okay.
Sir, it's my understanding, reading through some of this language, it may require the ORC to do a review, just to be on the safe side with the tree commission and our town ordinances, that we should do a review, because I do think some of this language requires ordinance changes.
Okay.
So I would like to see the ORC, maybe work with the ORC, work with the tree commission to make the changes. And I do have one more question of the presenter.
Go ahead.
Chrissy, I appreciate all your hard work and I appreciate the Tree City USA. Is there a flag that we have instead of putting up signs that we can put up instead of Tree USA flag?
We have a flag and we have signs. I've given them to the town.
Okay, and then is there a way to go after, cut the ivy grants? I know there's one out there.
We're not interested in doing that. We only have 3 people on our committee and we have commission and we have more work than we
Well,
want to do.
there's 286 people in this town who'd love to help you cut the ivy.
Well, no, we do that every year where we put out a notice and up and we get nobody coming. So what can I say?
Okay, I've never seen a notice, but so you got my email on town council. Please send me the notice. I'll fill up the gloves. And
Okay, all right.
Thank you.
Thank you. I think the chair will entertain a motion to, go ahead, Chris.
Well, I would like to make a motion to approve the tree plan as presented.
Okay. Second on the motion, second.
Second.
Okay.
Second.
All right, Storm, you
Yeah.
got it. A discussion on the motion. All those in favor of the motion to approve the tree plan as presented, raise your hand. Opposed? George, what, are you up or down?
I was slow. so
Okay.
yes.
Okay. All right, so 6-1.
Thank you.
And then I would like to also make a motion to refer these 2 items from the tree plan to ORC for possible revisions
I'll second that.
of the town code.
Okay. Is there discussion on the motion? Hearing none, all in favor of the motion, raise your hand. Opposed? 0.
Thank you, Chris.
Thank you, Christie. Parks and Rec, discussion regarding appointment to the park. This is a reappointment. You have it before you. Zach is requesting his appointment was up in, when's that?
End of January.
End of January. He'd like to be reappointed to the Parks and Rec Commission.
I'd like to nominate Zach Morris for his reappointment to the Parks and Rec Commission.
Okay, thank you. Do a roll call, Nina.
Zach Morris,
Yes.
Storm Beach Stampa, Chris Craig,
Yes.
George Owens,
Yes.
Roberta Meek-Craig,
Yes.
Nina Ann Armstrong, yes, Greg Vaughn,
Yes. All right, landmarks, George, any report?
I'll let that slide for the time being.
Sir?
no,
That would be a no.
Oh, okay.
I'll let it go for the time being. Have things to report, but in the interest of time now.
All right. Planning Commission?
Yeah, I have a couple things. I'll keep it quick. First of all, we're excited to say that if all goes according to schedule, we should have the comprehensive plan ready for public distribution in April. That is what our consultant has said. We only have 1 or 2 more special meetings, and then we should have a draft. And also referring to an item from last time, which is not on here, but we discussed it planning, was the changes to meeting administration that would affect town council and several of our other commissions and committees. Members, in brief, members of planning were split. Some thought it would make meetings more efficient. Others thought that the time limit would make it difficult to discuss things like the comprehensive plan that covers 10 years of thought in a bridge timeline. So overall, yeah, I guess planning is split on that, but might consider it. omitting planning if we go back to that discussion. So that's all ended there.
Thank you.
Is there a date set for the next comprehensive plan meeting?
There's not a specific date, but it will be in early March. I'm on travel and we pushed it back, so I will announce that as soon as I have it.
Okay.
Yep.
Thanks.
Roberta, before we get to the specific items, Roman numeral 2 all the way down, do you have a report to give?
The report will be the items below.
Okay, all right, I'll take it from there. Agenda item, discussion action regarding a meeting of town council with town attorney discussing commission committee ordinance revision. Roberta, I read your agenda request and I'm a little confused. You are requesting that a full town council meeting with a meeting to be with a town attorney present concerning commission and committee ordinances. This doesn't rise to the level at this time for a full town council meeting on this, Roberta. If you want to discuss ORC, you want to discuss legal questions that you need opinions on, then I will authorize Ken Sayer to meet with ORC and you can present whatever issues you want opinions and advice on. This does not rise to the level at this time to come to the town council. The town council wasn't given this assignment. ORC was given this assignment. Okay? So if you want to go, and I'll make arrangements for the three of you, if you want to sit down with Mr. Sayer, but before I do that, I want specifically from ORC, I want to know what specific legal issues and concerns that you have that you need his help on so that he can be properly prepared when I set up this meeting with the three of you and Ken Sayer. Is that fair?
Yes, may I respond to your
Absolutely.
comments? Okay. The reason I'm going to do all item 2, 3, and 4 together, and I'll give you the summary of why we brought it here. Because in your initial speech to this town council, when we became elected and duly oriented, that you suggested that no town council member was to talk to town attorney whatsoever. Right. So we brought it forward this way, understanding that's what we had to do. So we brought it forward to town council to give us approval to talk to the town attorney, because you told us we couldn't. So that's why we brought it to this venue, so that we could get permission to do that. We also felt it was important that all town council members hear what the town attorney had to say, and that so all of us going forward would always be on the same page and not hear something or get hearsay or misunderstood something that the town attorney said to us or get misinterpreted later down the road. It's all recorded and in front of us that all of us heard the same thing. So that's why we brought it forward this way as well.
Okay. It doesn't rise to the town council.
Okay.
Okay. It does not rise to the town council. Now, Zach and I have met with the town attorney on a planning issue. I'm going to authorize Zach and George also to, when you get the information together, to meet with the town attorney. We don't need to waste this council's time. After you get advice, then you're going to come forward with a finished product. And you're going to present that finished product to this council regarding, is there any possible way that we can combine all of these things in this tasking that you're working on? And then at that time, you can brief us. And during your briefing, you can mention the fact that you met with a town attorney and his advice was A, B, and C. We, as the 7 of us, do not need to get involved in that. Okay?
Just to clarify the processes, you should contact the mayor and the mayor will schedule any meetings with the attorney.
I will schedule that. And there's a reason for what Roberta, she was right when she said in our first meeting in July of 2023, because it involves a fiscal impact, which means when you go to the town attorney, it's not a freebie. When you go to our accounting firm, it's not a freebie. We are on the clock. We get billed every 15 minutes or so, and I forget what the billing cycle is. I am the only one that can authorize that. I will delegate at sometimes with our financial officer, but no one has authority, and the town attorney and our accountants know that. No one has the authority to go direct to them. It's just bad business. George,
Yes, and
you have a
Again,
comment on what Roberta
yes,
said? Is it on this item?
absolutely.
Okay, go ahead.
Just to emphasize, the town council was brought into this out of deference. As she stated, and frankly, I agree with you that it'd be more efficient to have just the ORC. And so,
Is it? Is
uh,
that safe drinking water?
with that,
Is it?
You're gonna have to
And a
repeat
little-
that speech
I'm
George,
good.
when she gets back.
I will make
Well, we don't need a motion.
Uh,
We don't need,
So we don't need a motion,
I'm authorizing,
okay?
I'm authorizing access to the attorney for the three of you with a caveat that you give me what specific legal guide questions that you have so that Ken Sayer can prepare himself for the discussion.
We'll be as legally concise as we can legally
Okay.
be.
And I want that to be a consensus of ORC. I don't want it to be yours, Chris, or yours, George, or yours, Roberta. That means the three of you get together and come up. Go ahead,
And
Chris.
that actually satisfies 2 and 3, but not 4.
Exactly.
Mayor, I think the questions we have for the attorney on specific to the membership of the commissions, those are very specific, and I think this is a good process. The larger question that we've talked about and that we need some clarification on is home rule. And there are questions coming up on what are we allowed to do when we're seeing a difference between state code and town ordinances.
Well, that's mentioned in what she's going for here.
It is,
Chris.
but it's a pretty big discussion.
It is a big discussion.
So I guess we start with this small discussion.
I would start with the first submission, which is the small one. Then you, as I read Roberta's request, she would like to see what kind of a nexus there is between home rule and possibly resolving some of the differences on appointing and selecting committee peoples for all these committees I have. As long as you keep it to that, then you give me again the legal questions of the legal issues. Now, don't forget, Ken Sayer was the chairman of the Home Rule Board for years, okay?
Right.
So,
I remember that.
and I don't want you going off track with our attorney. I mean, you stay on the rails on this specific agenda item having to do with 131, 133, 134, and give me again what legal things you would like to have him answer on this one, and I'll make arrangements for the three of you to sit down with Ken on that one.
And the other question I have about that is, it would be very efficient for us to pool our questions and to fine tune those on email. Is that considered deliberation? Are we allowed to do?
Certainly.
So the three of you can get together and the three of you can come up with things that right now you're puzzled about legal things, what can be done or what can't be done to try to consolidate policies for selecting committee and that was the initial request that I had, Roberta, months ago, was there's so many differences between the way we select people for our committees. Is there a way that Harpers Ferry can come up with a single way? And I know there's a problem with landmarks and I know there's a problem with planning, but I'm not aware of any reason why the rest of our committees that we have people serving on, we can't come up with a single way to select and nominate them. Okay.
But I guess what I'm asking is our method for coming up with the questions. Do we need to have a formal meeting announced to the public to hash out these questions, or can we?
No, you're working on a tasking. Okay. You have accepted a tasking to work on, and one of the things that you're looking from the tasking is to get legal opinion on some stumbling blocks that you're running into with not being able to complete your assignment. That makes sense?
Mayor, with all due respect, I was on the phone specifically with this issue about emails. And we are warned against using the whole bodies or even a quorum of bodies.
Oh, yeah, I'm aware of that. I mean, you cannot, that's called daisy chaining. It's illegal. You can't do it. Go ahead, Roberta, real quick.
Yes, and may I also address Chris in his comments?
Sure.
We have to have a meeting. We are a group that is less than two, and two makes a quorum. We cannot deliberate in emails. I gave you that law that was put out by the Ethics Commission. We have to have a meeting. We cannot meet an email. We cannot
Who
talk
has to
about
have, who has to have a meeting?
any
ORC, you're not talking town council.
I'm talking any committee that's less than two members or less.
Yeah,
Has to do it that way according to the West Virginia.
right,
Ethics Code.
okay.
Okay, so let me summarize. You love to have me summarize, and I'm gonna
Okay,
keep
let me see if your summary is better than my summary.
So you are going to authorize the ORC to meet with the town attorney over these issues regarding your task that you've given us to come up with or to resolve problems with Articles 133, 134, 135, 140, 901, 1104, and 131. And come up with a list of questions that we're to present. Now, am I going to be tied to those list of questions? Because there might be some more questions that come up during our discussion with the attorney. I don't want to be locked in to
No.
just those
All right,
questions.
I'm gonna use common sense here.
Okay.
I don't want anyone on ORC going off the rails on this. Oh, just because you got the town attorney in there, you know, you get into some other issue that has nothing to do with this. Then when you do that one time, that'll be the last time you'll have access
I
to
think
the
all
town
three of us
attorney.
not be professional. So,
Okay,
It's lonely at the top, Greg.
I know it is very long. All right, any other, okay, so you know what you're doing, Roberta, you're gonna
So,
get,
sir, I don't need to have any motions
Nope.
to make that happen for
Nope.
us tonight?
no,
And Please hope that
I just told
you
you.
stand by it.
You get all the legal stuff together, Roberta, and I'll get them to Mr. Sayer. And you meet with the other ORC and we'll be ready to go.
Fantastic.
Okay? All right, what are we doing now, Roberta?
I'm doing a dog and pony show if you let me.
Is this for 4, discussion and action regarding ORC requests, discussions between the Mayor Vaughn and any other?
No, we've already covered that in what we just discussed.
Okay.
Form 5.
Roberta, what?
So this is a dark sky presentation?
No, we're not there yet.
Well, I thought we
Okay,
were.
no, if you, Roberta, go ahead. If you could do me a favor and sit next between George and Nina again. Okay, I'm on 6I number 4. Roberta, your discussion action,
I believe 2, 3, and 4 we just discussed, sir.
no,
This is not a request from an attorney. This is
this is not a request from the attorney. This is what you said. Discussion and action regarding information the ORC requests regarding discussions between Mayor Vaughn or any other council member and with the town attorney regarding all of these issues. Now, that's not an actionable item. If you wanted to know, did I ever have any conversations with Ken Sayer about this? Is that what you're asking?
I understand there were some conversations.
Is that what you're after?
And
Any
I'm after the information from those conversations.
Did you ever ask me if I ever had any conversations?
I'm asking you now. in this
No.
session.
Did you ever ask me or any other member of the council? Because if you would have asked me, I would have given you the conversation I had with Ken Sayer, but you didn't. This doesn't need, Roberta, this doesn't need to be on the town council. I had one and only one conversation with Ken Sayer, and you're welcome to it. It's right here. It's a one sentence. Now, have you asked any other council member whether they,
From one of the members of the ORC, there were maybe more than one conversations, and there was maybe
you asked them?
other town. Chris, would you like to reiterate what you told us in the ORC meeting?
I'm frankly kind of lost. I'm not
Yeah.
sure what.
Well, Roberta, on something like this resides more in a FOIA request than anything. This is not an actionable item for the council. Do you disagree with that?
Point of order, Mr. Mayor.
Excuse me, George.
No
I mean,
comment.
I'm
no
trying.
comment, sir. No comment.
Point of order.
Okay, go ahead, George.
Yes, this is a discussion and action item on the agenda, regardless of the merits of it, I believe. Since it has been approved, it is approved agenda, then we need to conduct the business on it, discussion and actions. And if she's got a motion, or somebody has a motion, we need to hear it.
Well, there's no motion on the floor.
I can make one.
Go ahead, make a motion.
I'd like to make a motion that Mayor Vaughn shall provide information in writing from conversations, emails, phone calls, etc., regarding the discussions between Mayor Vaughn and or any other council members or member with the town attorney regarding the issues and discrepancies pointed out by the town attorney regarding these articles of our city code 131, 133, 134, 135, 140, 901, and 1104.
Is there a second on that motion?
I would like to ask Roberta to withdraw that motion in favor of the mayor anticipating supplying that information voluntarily. Sir, would you so agree?
Very good.
And Chris, would you so agree?
Certainly.
Okay.
Well, you gotta ask.
Accept
Gotta ask.
What you're fishing for.
Would you feel good on withdrawing that motion?
These motions were made in the ORC job.
I understand that. So if you don't want, you saying you don't want to withdraw that?
Is there a second on the motion?
I'm awaiting her response here. And
Let's see how it carries.
are
Alright,
you
I'll put a second on it.
All right,
Very
any
good.
discussion on the motion? All those in favor of the motion, raise your hand. Opposed? Motion fails.
okay?
Let's, Roberta, out of respect for ORC, let me give the chair of the ORC my communication with Mr. Sayer right there.
Thank you.
Again.
We are on 5, discussion and action on the current draft to propose new article 1306. Light pollution, energy conservation, and night sky conservation to be sent to town attorney for legal review as well as any subsequent revision received so ORC can prepare first and second reading of proposed article.
Okay, Storm, you have
May I, since this is my agenda item, sir? I would
see
like,
it.
I would like.
Point of privilege. Point of privilege, I request a 5-minute recess for biological reasons.
Fine, that'll be great.
Granted.
Anybody be interested in doing this?
Oh, okay.
We're all here to talk about that today, Tim. So thank you very much.
You know, hey, you're gonna. Okay, what a public service.
Buttons. Piece of paper.
After. Next person. You never thanked me for my service. Pardon me? You never thanked me for my service. On what's the context? I don't understand. Oh, I was at military service. Oh, I didn't know. Didn't know. Sorry. I'm sorry I didn't mention. It's almost cooling down in here.
Revert, about how much time you're gonna be taking up here?
I, I guess I'm allowed 10 minutes, but I don't think I'll be that long, sir.
Okay. All right, we're back, in business.
Is Storm still with us? Roberta? Okay.
So Roberta, if I'm not mistaken, Roberta.
Are you guys? did you wanna
5,
sit on
6, and 7.
Did you want to sit on this? We're ready to start. Isn't that better?
Yes.
It's
very dark room.
Okay. I'm here as a dark sky advocate, a planning commissioner, a town council member. First off, I'd like to enter two items into the record. I have two letters of support, one from Linda and Ron Rago and one from Wayne Bishop supporting this initiative. So I'd like to enter those into the record. What I want to bring forward to you tonight is your history of your dark sky ordinance commitment that you've already made as a town. Next slide, please. In 2007, the town of Harpers Ferry put forward a comprehensive plan. In that comprehensive plan, they outlined goals for a dark sky ordinance. 2009, the first attempts were being drafted by the dark sky ordinance team. At the time, it was just a team. It was the town recorder. He took it upon himself to do that. Okay? He forwarded the information he drafted to the Planning Commission. There were several drafts done by the Planning Commission during that time, but nothing was resolved. Okay? Many members of the Planning Commission wanted it done. There were many turnovers in the Planning Commission. It didn't get done. The town recorder put on the record, along with the Planning Commission ad hoc committee, that they put on the record in 2010 that their work has been stalled. For what reason, I don't know. Okay, I tried to find that information. But the work was stalled. You've lost 6 years. The ordinance in May 8, 2017. The ordinance came forward. It was ordinance number 2017-04. I have a copy of that if anybody wants to see that tonight. It was very simple. It covered a lot of the essential elements for that time frame, 2010 to 2016. Okay, the ordinance, the light pollution, and the science behind it was changed. During that first reading in May 8th, the mayor postponed it. He wanted to find more information in the West Virginia law, West Virginia codes, and any other municipalities that were doing this. A whole month went by. June 12th, again, ordinance 2017-04 was presented. I do not know why it was not moved forward. Okay, I did receive the meeting minutes tonight. I didn't get a chance to read them. Maybe the reason is in that set of meeting minutes from June 12th. September 19th, a few months later, the Planning Commission ad hoc committee, again, 2 people, one person being the Planning Commission person and one person being the recorder. Okay, I have no data going back all the way here, that officially created that committee. Other than stating on the record, they were an ad hoc committee underneath the Planning Commission. And they voted to use the current template of the dark sky ordinance. International dark sky became the forefront of information, of science, and what a lighting pollution ordinance should look like. Okay? That was in 2017. In 2019, March 21st, through March 19th, again, the ad hoc committee underneath the Planning Commission made several other reiterations, drafted several layers of language, but still did not come up with another ordinance. By then, International Dark Sky Association is changing what lighting pollution is all about, getting more data, finding out what it's all about to be dark sky compliant, what is light pollution, how does it affect our health, et cetera, et cetera. The data is changing. April 17th, you have the Dark Sky Committee, again, 2 people, same 2 people have followed it. This person followed it from here all the way to here, and I commend him for that work. That person, the Planning Commission person, picked it up here with him, and they carried it forward to here, April 17th, 2019. They put on the record with the Planning Commission that they have drafted draft number 2. I can't find draft number 1. Draft number 2 of the lighting standards that they were going to put forward in Appendix C in the zoning code. That is on your town records. I have a copy of it here if anyone looks at it tonight. It's unfinished. It never went through anything final. It has lots of points and questions in it, and it's unfinished. 2019. It's 2020, 2023. Let's just combine those 3 years really quickly. International Dark Sky and the International Illumination Society joined forces once again to come up with a joint model lighting ordinance template. That's what MLO stands for, model lighting ordinance. Again, new science, new data, new technology, new answers for all of us to comply with. That model lighting ordinance, as the committee said they would use, is what I used. I didn't make this up out of my mind. I didn't make this up out of what maybe Storm is worried about. I made it up myself. No, I don't have that kind of technology. I don't have that time. We've used the MLO that's been updated in 2020 and also in 2021 because you also said you wanted to use it. So the model lighting ordinance is what I use. That's what the draft you see there. I have followed their recommendations, okay, under what this group says, and prepared this ordinance, this draft. What's in the draft, and again, I have copies of that if you want to look at it and make that available to you. Going back to this draft, this draft, this draft, and now this draft, this is what they have in common. The vocabulary is the same. The glossary is similar. They wanted a curfew until 11 o'clock p.m. So did they, and so does this. I'm not making this up, it's already been made up. You guys already decided this. Lighting zones 1, 2, and 3. They said it in this draft because it said it here. It says it here, and I'm using it here because they say to use it. Lighting zones 1, 2, and 3. You all guys already decided that. Lighting plan. You wanted a lighting plan to be submitted as part of the permit. That's partly already in your ordinance under 1303. But now we're going to combine it and put it in the right place. We're going to put it all combined under lighting. You already said you wanted that. I want the permit to have a lighting plan so that it complies with dark sky. You already had enforcement issues. You already put a fine in these drafts, in these drafts, in this draft, and I just copied them. You already said you wanted the fines to be X amount of dollars. I just copied that. The other thing that's probably most different from this draft and these to what's here, these drafts are a little more strict. These drafts wanted everyone in town to comply within 6 months. I put forward 3 years. That's much more comfortable for someone to comply. Next slide, please. Again, we're using the model ordinance updated by International Illuminating Engineering Society and International Dark Sky, now known as Dark Sky International. Okay, they have the science. I didn't make up the science. So for one of the town council members to claim that I don't know what I'm talking about, or to claim that the ordinance is ridiculous, bogus, or way out of line, then he needs to go talk to these people, because they're the ones that know lighting. I'm also a lighting consultant from many years past. I used to design many commercial facilities. I do know what I'm talking about when it comes to lighting. Next slide, please. There are many organizations that support this initiative. National Park Service has on their website a night sky program talking about tourism and what they do for night sky. Night parties, night sky parties, many more. They have night sky viewings in the park. They educate the visitors to the park, and they have several of their parks here in West Virginia that have been designated as international dark sky places. Next slide, please. One park. The other organization that is going gangbusters on promoting this is the Sierra Club on a national level. They have had a light at night, a glowing hazard symposium. With that symposium, they determined that all living beings deserve to live under a clear, starry night sky. That's the Sierra Club. The Sierra Club West Virginia chapter, right here in our state. They have an energy efficiency campaign. Guess what this light ordinance does also? It probably cuts $30 million out of your energy bill on a statewide level. They encourage their local city and county governments to cut their energy bills by investing in energy efficient measures. This ordinance would be an energy efficient measure, and wouldn't it be great to partner with the Sierra Club? Next slide, please. Harpers Ferry Dark Sky Ordinance, other initiatives. Look how many people are doing this. NASA has this group called Solar System Ambassadors. They are willing to come in and help us. I just attended the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Summit on night sky and dark and bird collisions. An amazing group of people, amazing. They are working with architects to inform architects about birds colliding on glass windows and how that also affects migratory birds at night. Amazing conference. I wish more of you guys would have gone to that. The Girl Scouts. We're actually, the Girl Scouts have a night sky badge. So does the Boy Scouts. I'm going to put them up there. West Virginia Tourism is promoting dark sky tourism, dark sky lodging. Here are some other things. Who would have thought the zoos, the animals at night at the zoos in captivity, need to have a dark sky that they can enjoy also. Next slide, please. Anyway, what I'm trying to get at, and I'm sorry that the commissioner, the town council member felt the way he did, but this ordinance is very easy to comply with. Why do I say that? Because I already did. My house is the first house in Harpers Ferry, is certified dark sky. Here's what I did. I went to dark sky. I read the ordinance, read the MLO. What do I have to do as a resident? I did a self-assessment. There's a form online. Took me 30 minutes to do. I found out where my weaknesses were. I went to Home Depot. I bought 3 light bulbs. It cost me $11. I changed my light bulbs in 3 places on my house. I sent the dark sky assessment in. And I am now proud to say that Harpers Ferry has one house in their corporate limits that's dark sky certified. It's that easy. It is not difficult. Next.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Wow, thank you, Roberta.
You're welcome. So with this being said, I'd like the 3 items on the agenda to be considered Discussion and action on the current draft of the proposed new article 1306, which I gave you a draft of. Each of you had a draft of in your mailboxes a week ahead of this meeting. I received no questions from any of you. I received 3 corrections on typos from gracious people that responded back to me. And so I'm disappointed that the council member here didn't talk to me, but rather berate me on my poor skills of preparing this document. So I'm very disappointed that he feels that way. I really wish we would have had a conversation, him and I together.
Do you have your motion?
Yes.
Roberta, if I may, I don't recall you being berated. I recall, excuse me, a difference of opinion. Okay? Do not think one goes with the other. Difference of opinion is fine. Berating is something else, and I did not hear any berating. I have a few questions on these 3 items, Roberta, that we have now that you've got. Did the complete ORC committee approve pursuing this initiative in these 3 items?
We said we would bring them to council, okay? They did not, this ordinance was given to them as review as well. At the same time, Planning Commission had it for review. And at the same time, we introduced it to town council. So the only agreement we had from the ORC was to distribute it before this meeting.
Okay, so these 3, excuse me, George, these 3 items, were fully discussed with the ORC, and you all came to a consensus that you wanted these 3 agenda items brought forward to the council. Is that correct?
Yes, sir. These are my agenda. These are my motions as a town council member.
Okay, these 3 agenda items that you typed up. Here's my question one more time. These 3 agenda items.
Yes.
Did you present these, and was it fully discussed with ORC to bring forward this evening to council? Yes or no?
I explained to the ORC what my motives were going to be, and to distribute it ahead of time so we could make a decision, okay, and to bring these motions forward.
May I answer the question that she doesn't seem to want to answer? Roberta, please.
Go ahead.
Thank you. Because I'm the person who put forward the motion.
Okay.
We had a consensus 3 out of 3 motion, Greg.
Okay.
In which
that's all I'm asking, a simple question.
Yes, it's just a simple question, and I can even quote it because I have sort of a quote memory. The line that got him over on this was we would present all of these items, as you see here, to the council to decide, for the council to decide on the process we should follow.
Okay.
Okay. So these are process items. They're asking you to do process 1, process 2, process 3. Your answer is yes, sir.
I got that. All right, then let me throw this question back at this group. Why should these 3, why cannot these 3 process items, George, you're referring to, be turned over to the Dark Sky Committee that we approved earlier in this meeting? I think these are wonderful items. Why can't we just give these to the committee?
I'll address that.
All right, go ahead.
Okay. 1, we don't need to form a new committee.
No, we already have one.
Well,
We have one.
We shouldn't have, but whatever.
We have one.
Okay, whatever. It is way beyond going into committee again, because it is old business of the Planning Commission and is old business of the ORC. The ORC drafted already, you saw, 2 ordinances up there. So it's old business of the ORC. That's why I thought it, again, researching the history of the ORC, which I've done, it was prudent, it was time for it to come forward again. It was legitimately under the ORC to take the next step, okay? Because it was decided you were going to have a first reading, it didn't go through. You made other drafts that didn't go through. So now here's the most up-to-date, to the current science draft being presented by the ORC for consideration.
Okay. The question still remains. We now have an approved Dark Sky Committee that this council approved. You disagree with it, and that's fine. You've got the prerogative, Roberta. My question is, I believe these 3 items should just be turned over to that committee when it's formed and let them pick up the ball from there. Why is that not a prudent, and whatever you said, a prudent and whatever term you use, way to approach this?
Because I think it'll be railroaded.
George and then Zach.
I'd first like to say that, Mayor, in Robert's Rules of Order, they talk about the neutrality of the chair. And I think a line of questioning like this is not terribly neutral. So I'd like to see us get on to motion and second and discussion, please. But in service to your discussion, because I respect the question, I say that this is a asset that we have here in Roberta Meade Curry. She has done this work, and she's saving the town a great deal of work. If you take a look at all of these process items that we sent up to the council to decide on, each one of these, in their own way, goes and vets this ordinance, this great deal of work, in 3 different theaters, to be able to get the kind of changes that would answer Chris's questions and solve objections, that would answer Storm's questions and solve objections. The one goes and says that we need to talk to the town attorney about, what flies. Why should we waste time, Storm? I'm doing this rhetorically. When the lawyer says, no, we can't do this kind of thing. Or he says, yes, this is internationally accepted. The next one goes and asks us to put it in legal notice. And that's accomplishing something. We have a product, let's see what the reaction is. And the other is public workshop. Same kind of thing both you guys are asking for. There's the reason for it.
Okay.
So, thank you.
Okay, you're absolutely welcome. You're making some good points, George. But so is the chair. We have now an official committee that this council approved 2 hours ago. These are 3 good items that committee should be dealing with. They should be talking about setting up public workshops and putting things in a newspaper. So let's take this stepwise and not jump way ahead and put something in the paper. We have an official committee that we're going to be establishing. What difference does another week or month take? Because Roberta, you did a great job with the timeline. We've been messing around with this for 2007. It's not going to make any difference that this is going to take another month or 2 because we have to go through and work this through a committee. Zach.
My thoughts here, similar to what George said, for at least item 5 and 7. I think we could take action as a council to get the ball rolling there and then hand those still moving items over to the new committee. My fear is that if we don't continue some motion forward on this, we'll end up in another gap where it gets lost. Yeah. And I'm very concerned about that.
Nina, then Chris.
I think I agree that maybe we could start the ball rolling with number 7. I am uncomfortable with putting out a public notice for anything where we would be asking residents to incur any sort of financial costs to get their homes up to compliance without first allowing the town to be appraised of what's happening and what the benefits are of the program and things like that. I worry that if we make a public announcement of some sort of process change, that people would have to be upgrading their lighting, they'd have to be making adjustments to their homes prior to them being aware of that. I don't think that's necessarily appropriate. I also had some notes as far as the verbiage on the draft ordinance. I did not send my comments over because we're not allowed to deliberate in email. So that was my interpretation, is that this is a deliberation time. We shouldn't be sending those comments ahead of time.
Those questions.
There's a lot of kind of flowery language in the first 3 pages before we get to the more technical details that I don't necessarily think need to be in here. And I think that make sort of things like ordinances and stuff like that a little bit less approachable for the average citizen. And we really need to kind of steer towards making our ordinances and things like that very direct and clear so that they can be accessible to everyone. So that's my position.
Chris?
Yeah, my concerns are many about the draft ordinance. Process was a big one, and I've already kind of expressed my my feeling on that I felt like it came up inappropriately. The fact that some ORC in 2007 addressed it does not mean much in 2024. Beyond process, though, the content, we have, if you've read this, you have detailed regulations beyond the lights that the town owns and controls. We are talking about people trading off their 100-watt light bulbs on their porches to 40-watt bulbs. Now, maybe that is an honorable thing to do, and maybe the Dark Sky Committee can encourage and make more people request to do that. But I think making it an ordinance, we think people have problems accepting that they can't have aluminum storm windows. Talking about switching out light bulbs, getting to that nitty gritty, we better be ready for some feedback from the town citizens. Curfew. I think there are going to be some people who object to the idea that they can't leave their porch light on until 11:30 when they get home from a concert in DC or in Winchester. The business district. We are a tourist town. There seems to be no real talk about how this works for a tourist town where there are lots of unfamiliar people walking through the town, stumbling, trying to find their way. We also had a 2014 major fire in the business district. The fire marshal never determined what that was caused by, but all the scuttlebutt in Lower Town was that the lights were low and kids were running around playing with fire. Enforcement. Who is going to enforce this? Are we going to send out our policemen to check on wattage on people's front porches? We're a little town with a small staff, and turning it over to a town committee is absolutely the last thing that works, frankly. People don't want to enforce their neighbors, and it's a recipe for disaster.
Anything else, because we need to.
Roberta has her hand.
All right, Storm, go
I
ahead.
will stop with that.
Storm, go ahead.
Yeah, I believe that we have now taken action in creating this committee, and it's the body that should be charged with holding the public hearings, which are very important, and with getting it right. And it shouldn't be any one person's product, no matter who they are, as far as something this important in getting it right. And indeed, the standards have changed, and it's important to filter it through different perspectives and to get that input. So I feel at this time, it's appropriate to allow that committee to do its job, and that our first order of business, after having formed it, is to select its members and get it going.
Anything else to mention?
I'd like to make a couple motions. Ask a suggestion here. Town council shall direct the Dark Sky Committee to
Yes.
my English teacher is gonna correct
Shall.
my paper.
We're gonna call it the DSC. Okay.
Motion that town council shall direct the Dark Sky Committee to schedule a public workshop to receive public comments of the current draft of proposed new Article 1306, light pollution, energy conservation, and night sky conservation within 2 weeks of this
Meeting.
meeting tonight.
I'll second that so I can make an amendment. Because we currently have not elected members, so within 2 weeks is not.
Or we can call a special meeting.
So my amendment would be motion to have the first task of the newly appointed Dark Sky Committee to schedule a public workshop to receive public comments on the proposed draft of 1306 light pollution, energy conservation, night sky. So when they're formed, that would be their first note. Their first.
I second that.
Second from George. Discussion?
Point of order, I think there's already a motion on the floor.
That was my amendment. I would just add it to the top of it instead of the timeline of 2 weeks. It's when their
Got it,
first
sorry.
action will be
The
that.
amendment.
All right, any other discussion on the amendment?
Could you read it again?
Yeah, motion to have the first task of the newly appointed Dark Sky Committee to schedule a public workshop to receive public comment of proposed draft 1306 light pollution, energy conservation, and night sky conservation.
Satisfied, Chris? Any other discussion on the amended motion? All those in favor of the amendment, Norm?
No, I'm good.
Oh, okay. All those in favor of the amended motion, raise your hand. Opposed? Motion carried 4-3.
Do we have to do the main motion now?
Do the main motion.
Okay, so the main motion now reads, motion to have the first task of the newly appointed Dark Sky Committee to schedule a public workshop to receive public comments of the proposed draft 1306 within 1306 light pollution, energy conservation, and night sky conservation.
Norm?
That's been seconded already.
I don't know. Slowly.
I don't,
Any other discussion on the main motion?
yes.
Go ahead.
I don't believe that we should be shackling the new committee with looking at this particular ordinance. That I'd like to amend it to also include the dark sky model as well as other model ordinances.
So it would read, motion to have the first task of the newly appointed Dark Sky Committee to schedule a public workshop to receive public comments on proposed draft 1306, Dark Sky Committee and other lighting ordinances.
Point of information, is he amending the motion we already passed?
Yes.
You can't do that.
Point
Yes,
of clarification, the amendment was passed, the main motion was not
Yeah.
passed yet. We're still on the motion.
So he's amending the main motion again?
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Correct, and I do not know the official name of the dark sky model ordinance, but that is to what I'm referring, as well as other towns' ordinance, dark sky ordinances.
Okay.
All right, is there a second on the second amendment of the motion? We have a second from Chris. So, as I understand it, under discussion, taking the chair on the discussion, as I understand the storm, the only difference between this and the other amendment is that you want other possible dark sky ordinances that may be out there to consider. Is that correct?
Correct, a more comprehensive field of things for the new committee, which has not even been formed yet, to be able to look at, yes.
Any other discussion on
Yes.
the amendment to the amendment? Let's keep this real quick.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, the model ordinance is the
The mellow.
The MLO is the up-to-date science. It can be tweaked how you need it. It's been tweaked to our small town already. I have already looked at several lighting pollution ordinances around this tri-state area. I've also included areas where light pollution and the designation of their national dark sky has been awarded. Okay, so the blending of this has been done, and so you guys need to understand, if I could be so bold, is I've done the work for you. Okay, I've helped you get there faster.
Okay.
And I think you're going to be spinning your wheels out of control. And I think this is going to be deliberately delayed and you're going to be waiting another 17 years.
Just one second.
I'll
Storm,
be very quick. You would not acknowledge me, sir.
I got Storm's hand up. It was up before yours.
Well, it was. No, go
Go ahead, Storm.
He gets two.
Your Honor, if we go this route, we are substituting one individual's judgment for that of what the committee is supposed to be doing. And I do not feel that that is what this process is supposed to be. And that is why I propose this amendment. I think it's great to consider the filtering that has been done by one individual, but do not feel we should shackle this committee to one person's judgment, no matter who they are.
George.
Very quickly,
second
Roberta, when you take part in this committee, will you avail the entire committee of all the MLO copies of what's out there, all the text and all
Of
the
course,
source work
it's
you've
the
worked
breadth
with?
of data
course,
that I have
yeah.
used.
Of
And there's a
course,
breadth of organizations I've used,
Of course,
not me solely.
sir, yes, of course she will do that. She's an academic, among other things. And with all due respect, Storm, you don't even know the title of the document. So I'd like to say.
I object to being cited
So here's
individually.
the point. Here's the point. I don't think Storm's idea is well intended, but it isn't even necessary because the knowledgeable source here is more than happy to shower all the documents on.
Any other
For God's
discussion?
sake, thank you.
Any other discussion? All those in favor of the amended vote, raise your hand. Opposed? Abstained? The motion carried.
What's the vote, please?
4
yes.
2, 1 abstain. Main motion. Any further discussion on the main motion, which is Nina?
Main motion is to have the first task of the newly appointed Dark Sky Committee to schedule a public workshop to receive public comments of the proposed draft 1306 light pollution, energy conservation, and night sky conservation, as well as the dark sky model ordinance and other town dark sky ordinances.
All those in favor of the main motion, raise your hand. Opposed? Motion failed.
What's the vote, please?
4 3.
How's it
So
fail?
three yes, 4 no.
3 yes, 4 no.
3, 4, and 0. Okay.
So what did we pass?
Nothing.
Nothing. Oh my God.
All right, now where's our agenda item now?
JI, that's me, Internal Operations Committee. Discussion and action regarding social media policy. We are postponing that because
Sorry, point of order. Did we go through 5, 6, and 7 with that? Is that we're considering those all?
I think we were just addressing all of it.
No point in it,
Could I
frankly.
Can I make a quick motion before we move on? I move that the town council hold a special meeting prior to our next regular meeting to appoint members to the Dark Sky Committee so they can start working on this.
Second.
I'd like to amend that. Letters of interest need to be submitted to the town council.
I'll accept that.
Second,
All right, any other discussion on the motion? Read the motion, Nina.
Sorry, I'm trying to think it out. There's a lot of things happening. So prior to the next town council meeting, a special meeting should be held to elect town council members. Elect members of the Dark Skies Committee. That was from Zach. I seconded that one. And then Roberta had an amendment. One moment.
One more amendment. I'd like to move that it be before the next regular town council meeting.
Okay.
Yes. Accept that.
Amendment is from Roberta is letters of interest should be submitted to town council. That was seconded by George.
Discussion on the amended motion.
If Zach just accepts the amendment, then that just get.
I'm willing to accept. Yes.
Okay.
Just a second.
Prior to the next regular town council, that's all I'm adding.
So read the main motion, Nina.
Prior to the next regular town council meeting, a special meeting should be held to elect the members of the Dark Skies Committee. And now we're voting on the amendment to that, which is letters of interest should be submitted to town council.
Well, I'll just, if the second agrees, I'll just accept the amendment, both amendments into the original motion. We can just.
George, you agree with that?
Yeah.
Okay.
Alright, so council, we're voting on the motion
I'll read it 1 second.
for the next full regular town council meeting. We will have a special meeting to solicit.
Prior to the next regular town council meeting, a special meeting should be held to elect members of the Dark Sky Committee with letters of interest submitted to town council.
And we have a second on it. No.
Yes, that's me.
Okay, we have a discussion first.
1 month seems itself a pretty short time to come up with a new committee, actually. To me, I'm wondering what the benefit is going to be to hold another meeting in 2 weeks. How are we getting the word out?
I think you have active people. Have your referrals. I think you have a plethora of people who are submitting LOIs immediately to you, and I think you can make a decision quite quickly. I think a special meeting is what's the word I'm looking for? Is appropriate to be called. Time is of the essence, and we need to get started.
The plethora, you make a good point. The plethora is not, if we have one from HLC, we have one from planning.
HLC's meeting tomorrow, so they have the opportunity.
We have a representative from ORC, mayor's designee, one representative from the community. So I'm not sure we'll have maybe we'll have a plethora for that one community person. That's why.
Well,
okay.
We also, just by having a special meeting, we don't have to appoint every single position in that meeting. We can just appoint whoever has
Let's get it going.
applied.
Okay, all right. All those in favor of the motion? Opposed? Motion passes 5-2. Nina, you've got
6JI. So discussion action regarding town social media policy. We still need to speak with Parks and Rec. I think you're the person we're supposed to talk to about that. So, so we're not going to put any motion out today about that. I do have a motion for the town website. I'll make this really quick. We're meeting on the 19th to next Monday to kind of finalize a RFP that we'll be sending out. So this motion is sort of to just clear the way with the RFP and budget and finance, so then we can present something to town council hopefully within the next month or so. So motion to have the internal operations committee work in conjunction with the budget and finance committee to put the RFP developed by the IOC out to bid for the town website and to assess bids received for presentation to the town council.
Second first discussion on the motion. All those in favor of the motion? Motion carries. No opposed.
All right, and then the next one is for the town logo. Similar, we're doing the exact same process. Motion to have the internal operations committee work in conjunction with budget and finance committee to put the RFP developed by the IOC out to bid for the town logo and assess bids received for presentation to the town council.
Second on the motion. Second from George, discussion on the motion. Back.
I think I missed the initial meeting where this was discussed. I'm just confused as to the motivation behind it. I don't need to delay us too much. I'm just yeah,
The
yeah.
plan is basically just to put out to an RFP to get resumes, portfolios from different graphic designers and some price points for at least for the town logo, similar project for the website. Then we can narrow it down to someone that has the skills to create a logo that's similar based on their portfolio to what we'd be looking for and a price point that works within our budget. So hence why working with budget and finance on that. Absolutely.
I guess my confusion is the need to, I guess, change the logo. Is it in
We don't own-
conjunction?
We don't have the rights to the town logo, so we need to redesign it to something that we can put out there. So
None of that.
yeah, we need we do not. That is not. There's typos in it, and that's not our design. So what we're hoping to do is just find someone to recreate a similar design.
Gotcha.
That we can put on stationery and things like that.
Yeah, we also currently do not actually have an official logo, so this would actually establish it.
Any other discussion? All in favor of the motion, none opposed, 7-0. Yeah.
And then the next one was about the employee audit form. That was actually a request from the mayor. I provided a draft of what IOC had worked on last week to the mayor. He had some feedback, so we'll be taking that to our next meeting before presenting it to town council.
Very good. Basically,
He wants it to be shorter.
I want that to be short. There's too many items there this year for employees to do that. Nina?
That's it for IOC.
So we have discussion and action regarding reappointment to the BZA. And this is for David Simmons expressing interest. His appointment expired on January 1st, 2024 this year.
I nominate.
Nominate
David
I nominate
Simpson,
David
Board of
to
Zoning
the
Appeals.
BZA.
I'm sorry, just say that.
I nominate Dave Simmons to the BZA.
All right, and I guess a roll call vote. Zach Morris.
Yes.
Chris Craig.
Yes.
Storm DeSantis. George Owens.
Yes.
Roberta Mead Curry.
Yes.
Nina Ann Armstrong, yes. Greg Vaughn.
Yes.
All right, nomination passes.
Parking committee. I believe that the next two agenda items you have requires some contextual background to completely understand the issue. And you will note in your agenda, there are two agenda items dealing with a similar parking committee issue. I submitted my agenda, 6L Roman numeral 1. Another member of this council submitted agenda 6L Roman 2. Quite frankly, neither agenda request has any merit.
6L2 and 6L.
6L1 and 6L2.
Yeah.
Should I give the context of what we had? So there is a bit of a concern because because one of the next items on our unfinished business is the mission statements, which includes the appointment of members to the ORC budget and finance and IOC. So if we are functioning under the assumption that a new mission statement and terms of service being presented by town council and then being voted on means that there needs to be a reappointment of members, that means IOC, budget and finance, and ORC should probably also fall under that same standard. That's my interpretation of.
Would you repeat that?
Yeah, so unfinished business 7A is the mission statement approval for IOC, ORC, and budget and finance, which includes mission statements, duties and responsibilities, and a term description, an appointment description. So if we are functioning under the assumption that a newly submitted series of mission statements and things like that means that you need a reappointment of members. That means that we'll have to reappoint also budget and finance, ORC and IOC, as that's the standard that we are accepting going forward. We can't make that the rule for parking and then not make it the rule for other committees and commissions that are submitting these statements and then terms of.
Well, I'm confused because, may I be recognized?
I think the mayor you still got a point to make on this?
I do.
Yeah,
Go ahead, sir.
No,
back and then reverse.
Just a clarification, that if the mission statements for any of these committees specify terms by seat that were not specified before, do we at least need to assign seats to members? Because it sounds like what we're doing is we're taking something that was kind of nebulous and making it more specific. So I understand the logic of not taking any action, but then the specific seats that are called out, which may have different term limits, are not filled. So
Yeah.
there does seem to be some sort of action, but I don't know what that is.
That would make sense. To me, that would make sense that we would appoint the seats.
Assign, I think
Yeah,
assign.
assign the seats. But, yeah, because the ORC, I get, but even then that would be the chair would have to be reappointed, for budget and finance, ORC and IOC as well.
Sure.
All right, I'm gonna,
You said you come to me. Yeah. Back done?
go ahead. real
Okay.
quick.
So the parking committee created their new charter just a couple months ago. Is that not correct?
Yeah.
So therefore, by technicality of doing that, just like a code, when you adopt a new code, the old code goes out the window and it's gone. Okay?
Right.
So technically, the parking committee charter did that to them. The old code's out the door, whatever they were abiding by is out the door. You've established a new code for the parking committee. Now you need to abide by that. And if that technically got them caught in a oops, that, oh, then everybody that was on that committee is now gone because that committee doesn't exist anymore, and the new charter says this committee exists, then I think you're clouding the issue if I hear you right. I don't think, all these other committees and commissions that we put forward already have a term limit. And that term limit is per the administration. If the parking committee is going to operate the same way, then really you need to flip it the other way and say, they're going to be term limited to the administration versus term limited to dates. So how do you want to do that?
Okay. All right, George, and then I'm gonna continue where I left off.
Okay, we passed a parking
Okay, we all know that.
charter,
We all know
and I've got the language in
We
front
all
of
know
me.
that.
Well, please don't be dismissive of me. The gesture is the appropriate thing. Thank you. Okay. And, I'm proposing that we follow the law.
Okay.
And, the first item 1, Roman numeral 1, has no basis in our law. There's zero basis. The second item may be obviated, meaning ruled out in subsequent motion. I don't think it's going to happen tonight, but it is, in fact, we had put out notice and had 3 people put in letters of interest to be on this committee. And I think it's our duty to appoint them until we get all this revision of ordinance things straightened out. Thank you.
Great, Storm.
Speaking to the point about the process, if, and I believe it is correct, that once you create a formal committee where there was none, I think in Robert's rules, it says the ad hoc one falls down. And by that logic, the 3 standing committees also fall down because we appointed those members when it was not formalized. Once it was formalized, it's a new thing. So we would need to vote on those, and I believe.
The ORC is probably your only standing committee that you officially had a policy and a ruling for, and I believe that's dated April 16th, something, 2013. So maybe the ORC is your truly only standing committee that truly existed.
Okay.
That's the argument you guys are.
Now I got the chair back again.
Thank you, sir.
All right. Let's start all over again. The next 2 agenda items, I think, require some backup. And one of them was submitted by myself, one submitted by another member of this council. And quite frankly, neither agenda request has been accepted. The only remaining action for this body to take regarding the parking committee this evening is to fill the town council rep for the committee. There are no other vacancies. The parking committee right now consists of Christian, Patrick, John Brown, and myself, and a town council rep. Now, one member of this council will argue vociferously that when a parking committee charter or mission was approved by this council, the parking committee members serving up to that time then became persona non grata and ceased to exist, and that new community members had to apply by submitting letters of interest and then voted on by the town council. In my opinion, this is nonsense. Our actions last month merely approved a charter that never existed before until I became mayor and insisted that all of the town's standing committees needed to have charters so that future town councils will know the purpose and guiding principles surrounding standing committees. This will be a great aid for public servants as they begin serving on the spirit. Further, there is absolutely nothing that transpired during our deliberation when the charter was approved that dissolved the parking committee membership. All that occurred was this body approved a guiding document for future councils to reference and be guided by. And let me pose this question. What if this town council passed a new ordinance prohibiting fences over 3 feet? Does that mean that I would then be required to remove my 4-foot hoop and spear? Put your hand down, Roberta, I'm finished.
I'll answer that.
To remove my 4-foot hoop and spear fence? The answer is absolutely not. There is no difference between this scenario and telling Patrick and Christian that their service to the town ended when the charter was approved. Why would we want to even consider pursuing all possible means to remove hardworking community volunteers willing to unselfishly give of their time to help the town? This is absurd, and it's also offensive. We need to be rewarding and thanking our resident volunteers instead of looking for ways to impose our personal bias and prejudice against a particular town volunteer or volunteers. Our commissions and committees have gone unfilled for years. That's how difficult it is to attract dedicated and committed resident volunteers. Both agenda item 6L Roman numeral 1 and agenda item 6L Roman numeral 2 need to be struck, and we simply move to agenda 6L Roman numeral 3 and select a town council rep to serve on the current 4-person parking committee and then make a poll.
May I be recognized, please, sir?
Sure.
Several points on your comments. One, you're making a horrible assumption that we think, whoever we are on this council, don't appreciate the volunteers we have in this town. So you've made a horrible assumption on that part, and I'm sorry you made that assumption. Two, you're comparing apples to oranges. Land use law and a committee, and what evolves around what a committee is formed and the rules and bylaws for a committee has nothing to do with land use law. Okay, land use law is much different than forming a committee, and that example doesn't cut the mustard. It's apples and oranges. Thirdly, I think if you wanted to make a change to the agenda, you should have done it at the beginning of the meeting. So the agenda stands and the agenda has been approved, and we need to go forward with the agenda items as they stand. Thank you.
I have a motion. Go ahead, Sora.
Just point of order, the agenda could be changed with a 2/3 vote.
Thank you.
I have a motion. I move that we appoint to fill the resident position on the parking committee known as Resident 2 for a 3-year term.
Point of order, I believe if we are taking on these items, we must go to Parking Committee, item 1 first.
Well, we didn't on the last items for the ORC, but I'll yield to that.
All right. How's that? The point I brought up earlier, and I'm not sure how we're proceeding on this, if we're appointing or not, but at the very least, I think that the 2 seats on the parking committee now have names, seat 1 and seat 2, with specific terms associated with each of those. So at the very least, we need to specify who is in each of those seats. Otherwise, I don't think there's a mechanism for the parking committee to do it themselves. And the term limits are defined by the seat. Okay?
Also, just, I will be, just to put this out there, I will be abstaining from this because if we vote on this item, then we will have to move forward with reevaluating the membership of ORC, Budget and Finance, and IOC. And so either if 1 or 2, it goes through the process, then by default for 7A, we're gonna have to re-examine the membership of ORC, IOC, and Budget and Finance.
Sure.
I don't believe that that's any cause for recusal. The only reason for recusal by West Virginia code is if there is a direct financial gain.
More just recusal because I feel it shouldn't be voted on.
Point of clarification,
Abstention.
Abstention?
Yeah.
Okay.
One last comment. I'd like to make a motion that we get a legal opinion on what you're talking about with these committees, and how they are not valid anymore by making a vote on the parking committee tonight. I did. I'd like to make a motion. Second.
Any discussion on the motion? All those in favor of the motion, raise your hand. No further. All right. Read that motion.
What did you,
One moment.
I'd like to ask what item number that was a motion for.
Just to cover all 3 of them.
Mr. Storm up here just said we got to do 1, 2, and 3 in that order.
I'm trying to get this written.
I believe, Nina, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but your motion was basically for number 1 and number 2. I'm not Nina, I'm sorry, Roberta.
It was across the board, sir.
Storm established that we don't do that. We got to do 1 at a time.
What I said was that we had to go to the first item first.
Now let's do it.
No, I
Just
believe
did.
we just passed getting legal counsel, and I think,
Without an agenda item.
counsel, that item number 3, discussion action regarding appointing the town council member to the parking committees, is pretty straightforward.
It would not fall, I think, like that.
Pardon?
I don't think it would fall under the same question
Yeah,
because there was no.
It's straightforward. We don't need to get down.
And what established a town council member of the parking commission? This charter?
What?
The charter established the town council member of the parking committee, right?
And we took 2 votes last time, and now we're going to try it again.
But the charter doesn't exist.
No, the charter exists.
Parking charter.
The parking charter exists.
We're just not following it.
No.
Well, no, it's a discussion as to, as a town, do we decide that when a new charter is established, that we maintain the membership of that committee or commission when a charter is established? Or are we saying that when a new charter is established for a committee or commission, that we are starting over from a blank slate with new appointments? And then meaning that ORC, IOC, and Budget and Finance would need to be reappointed. So we have 2 options. We have to decide that either it's
That's the legal question.
that's the legal question. Well, the legal question is that do IOC, ORC, and Budget and Finance fall under the same
That's
guideline?
interesting when we vote on things. I'll get out of the way. Sure, let's get a legal opinion.
I move that we postpone further discussion and action on items. What are we on? I1 and 2 until we receive the legal input as addressed in the previous motion.
Second.
Can you be more specific?
Amendment to that as well. We should include 7A in that.
And 7A, I second that amendment.
I'll if
L.
the second will I'll take that in.
LI.
You'll include that.
Yes.
I,
I,
1,
I.
2, and 3.
Yeah, and 7A, because they all fall under, my amendment was to include 7A.
Okay,
So-
you're very. Okay. Need to repeat that.
Okay, so the amended motion is to postpone discussion on items, is this I or no? LI,
Use the number.
L 1, 2, 3, and 7A, pending legal advice.
I thought,
Can you put a
I thought it was just one and two.
6L.
I thought we limited to 3. Because
No,
that's 3, 4.
No, we'll just get the legal advice on everything. We'll
So
just
say it
wait.
one more time.
So, postpone 6L, 1, 2, 3, and 7A pending, legal advice.
Was your second on that?
I'll second.
Second.
Second, more bird, second on the amendment. Sure, then all those in favor of the amendment motion? Opposed, 0. Main motion is,
Postpone discussing, postpone making decision on 6L, 1, 2, 3, and 7A pending a legal opinion.
what's the difference between the main motion and the motion?
Hard to say.
They're the same.
Well, the amendment passed.
The
so
amendment
now-
passed, so then now that's the main motion with the amendment.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was late.
Yeah.
Yep.
All those in favor of the main motion? 7, 0. Chris?
Mayor, I move to adjourn.
Second.
No, I want to say.
We didn't have a vote.
And, yeah, all in favor of adjourn. Good, 10:45 p.m.
That's the room.